live. It's currently 6:38 on the AM side of things. You understand me? It's your boy Dabrand knows, and now that you know that your boy Dabrand knows, I'm gonna get ready to start this show. Get you up and out the door. So let's go. Come on. I think you're gonna like this.
I think there is a way we can get beyond, our differences on immigration and our differences on approach. And I think, but we have to look at this in a broad scope and try to leave some of that aside. I think there is no justification for bad behavior on from law enforcement, whether it's your local police or others. It has to be investigated, it needs to be corrected. You have to change your policies. You have to announce that you're going to do a better job. But I think there is an explanation for why there's 3,000 ICE agents in Minnesota. One explanation has been put forward was vindictive. Maybe, I don't know for sure. But I do know that if you tell people preemptively that your local police will not cooperate, so if ICE calls you up and says to Minneapolis, we have a guy, we're just presuming it's a guy because more bad people out there, unfortunately, are men than women. It's a guy, this bad guy, we want to pick him up. He's been convicted of an assault and he's now needs to be deported. If the policy of Minneapolis is not to cooperate at all, I mean, there's going to be a real problem, and then they're going to say we need more ICE agents. So what happens right now, Mr. Ellison, Attorney General Ellison, if I'm from ICE and I call Minneapolis and I say, John Smith is wanted, and will you help us? Could we have 10 Minneapolis policemen go with 1 or 2 agents and arrest him? Or do we have to have 12 agents and no Minneapolis police? What happens?
Well, under Minnesota statute 631.50, anybody convicted of a felony who's in custody must be questioned about their nationality.
That's in custody. That's sort of a different question.
Okay.
I'm talking about somebody who's in the community and they need help arresting this person.
Right, but you said felony, so
you're right.
That's what maybe,
and that's a different. We'll talk about that. But let's talk about somebody they want help, and is the local police force going to give them help, or do they have to bring in all ICE agents to do it?
Certainly, targeted enforcement is not the problem, as has been said.
But I think that's what has been said of some of your policies, and the interpretation is that they don't have to and won't cooperate with ICE.
Well, Mr. Chairman, first of all, they're not my policies, just so all the members of the committee know. When you see advice or an advisory opinion coming from the Attorney General's office, this is not my opinion. It is the lawyers in my offices at my best analysis of what the law requires. So I say that to you because even if I didn't issue an opinion, the law would still be what it was.
But a month ago, if ICE called the local Minneapolis police and said, we want to arrest this person, will the Minneapolis police help ICE to arrest a person?
I think so, yes.
Well, and now we're at a question of facts.
But see, Mr. Chairman,
I think most people are arguing that that's not true and that that's a reason for the surge. If it is true, then the local officials need to say they will. But I mean, the mayor of Minneapolis said used crude language to tell them where to go. He didn't say, oh, we're not going to help you arrest 5-year-old boys because we think that's wrong. But if you have a rapist, we'll help you elect rapists, assault people, thieves, drug kingpins, et cetera. But it doesn't sound like that's what's happening to me. I mean, do you really think that it is happening? They're cooperating?
Yes, I do, Senator.
All right.
And let me just, if you'd allow me just to elaborate, I think that what we're dealing with is a difference of what the scenario is. If you're talking about a person who's been convicted of a crime where in targeted enforcement, you will see Minnesota officials make sure that that person is addressed properly. It deals with their consequences when it comes to immigration.
So Representative Niska, do you think the local police are cooperating if ICE calls them?
No, the public statements of Minneapolis officials have been that Minneapolis police will not assist in enforcing immigration. Perhaps they'll assist if there's some state crime that's alleged, but if ICE were to call in your scenario and say, we need to pick somebody up for violating immigration law, the Minneapolis public statements have been that they won't. And the example we saw just this last week of someone who was arrested with 50 pounds, an illegal immigrant arrested with 50 pounds of meth on January 8th was allowed to go free and had to be taken by ICE last week.
Thank you. Mr. Schnell, I would like to know, and I've watched some of your interviews, I am impressed with the idea that ICE was saying there was 1,300 people. You reviewed them. Some of these people aren't in Minnesota, never were in Minnesota. Some have been released to ICE themselves, and their list is just flat out wrong. The most impressive thing I heard in one of your interviews was that someone named Lou Mua was a person that they were, saying this is why we have to break down doors because this terrible person. Sounds like he probably is a terrible person, but you said he was in jail already, and he had a detainer. So I think that truth needs to be explored if that is really happening. There used to be, people said, a direct portal, though. So when you did it or somebody got booked, it went directly to ICE. Does that still exist, or do you have to do them one at a time in prison?
So, Mr. Chair, at present, we provide notification in accordance with law to ICE when they come in. There are systems that are available to people to be able to get that, for ICE to be able to get that information.
I was told that Mayorkas stopped the portal, and the portal was a very fast portal where it was sort of automatically done. True or not true?
It is true that there is a portal that ICE can access.
It was stopped under Mayorkas.
I believe so.
Okay. But you still do your job. You do your detainers in. And so one of the questions goes back to Attorney General Morris's point. So, and look, I'm a stickler for the law. I'm a libertarian on these issues. If detaining somebody who's already served their sentence doesn't make sense to me. But here's my question. If someone is in your prison for 5 years, which some of them are going to be in prison 5 years, they're also wanted and they're at a detainer, which means they haven't had their judgment. Why couldn't we go to immigration court during the 5 years in prison? Does that happen, and why doesn't it happen?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there are some rare instances where we have had people who have had immigration proceedings while they've been in custody and, where removal
That would answer some of the questions. Then you have a final court judgment. You go through a court, he's going to be represented, and we're going to go through the final judgment. And then Attorney General's problem that, they've not, a detainer's a request, not a conviction, then they would have had their conviction. It's much easier. But they also, if it's seamlessly working, is it most of the time when you notify ICE, are they showing up on the day they're going to release and it's a peaceful turnover? Or are they doing it half the time, 20% of the time, 100% of the time? How's it working?
Mr. Chairman, I think there has been wide-scale cooperation for a long time. We have had, excellent experiences, and the local staff of the Department of Corrections and the local ICE office are very effective.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ellison, let me start with you. You're the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. Do I have that correct? That's a yes?
Sir, you're aware of my job. You know the answer to that.
You're not going to answer my questions? Are we going to start this way? Are you the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, yes or no?
You know the answer.
Mr. Ellison, you're in my courtroom now. You're under oath. So I suggest that you answer my questions. You the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the state of Minnesota, yes or no? Let's try another question. Are you familiar with the $9 billion in historic fraud out of your state, including the $250 million in the Feeding Our Future program alone? Are you familiar with that? Don't turn to the pages in your book to get your potted answers. Are you familiar with it? Yes or no?
Yes, I am familiar with it.
Very familiar, aren't you? Because the people who ran the Feeding Our Futures program came to you in your official office in the state capitol December 11th, 2021, and asked for your help in getting investigators off their backs. They complained to you for upwards of an hour about state investigators going after them, and they begged you to help them, and you agreed to it, amazingly. And we know you did.
That's not
because
true.
It's all caught on tape.
Yeah,
Every single sentence is caught on tape. Here's what you said. Let's take a look.
Obviously, you
said, it's not a question. You said to them, send me the names of all these folks who are investigating them. You said to them, send me their names. And I'll take that list and I'll call the person over at education who is investigating them and say, what's going on? Why am I getting these complaints? Then he went on to say, I already have my team working on this. What day should we get together to discuss it again? You made pledge after pledge to them. You said, we've got to make sure this guy who's investigating them stops it. You said, you have my attention. I'm concerned about this. You said, let's go fight these people, meaning the people who were investigating the fraud. Why'd you do it? Why'd you help them?
Are you going to let me answer?
Please, we're all ears.
So first of all, you're cherry picking quotes out of there.
Why did you help them?
I thought you were going to let me answer.
Why did you
Are you
help
going to let
them?
me answer?
Why did you help
You
them?
let me answer and I'll answer you.
Tell the truth and I'll let you answer.
I will tell the truth.
Good.
Let's do that.
That'd be a nice change. Why'd you help them?
Now see, Mr. Chairman, I didn't come here to be insulted. I came here voluntarily.
You came here for the truth. Let's have it. Why did you help them? The quotes are here. They're in black and white, and every member of this audience can listen to the recording. It's 54 minutes long. It's all in public. You can Google it right now and listen to it.
And listen to it all.
Why'd you help them?
First of all, I didn't help them.
You did help them.
No, I did not. I certainly didn't.
You're saying you didn't do anything for them. You didn't.
Well, wait a minute.
I already have my team working on this again. That's not you?
I have
ventriloquist?
my team assisted with the information that led to the prosecution and conviction of these people.
No, you didn't. You didn't lift a finger to prosecute them. No, you did not. You didn't lift a finger to prosecute them.
Federal prosecution.
You had, BS. You had whistleblowers come to you as early as 2019.
You're the one talking BS.
Hey, listen, it's my time.
Doesn't know what you're talking about, sir.
No, sir. You now have encountered the truth and you don't like it. Why'd you take their money? Why'd you take their money?
I didn't.
You took $10,000.
No, that's a false statement.
$10,000 9 days after the meeting.
False statement.
You took $10,000. Here's what happened. They went to your office.
They
solicited money from you. They solicited help from you.
That's also wrong.
They came to your office. It was your official office. You met with them for 54 minutes.
No, they didn't.
They asked you for help. You pledged it to them, and they talked repeatedly about money. In fact, it's all they talked about.
That's a lie.
Money, 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 money. They said, we will put our dollars in the right place. We will support candidates that will fight to protect our interests. You replied, that's right. They said, if you are secure in your donor base and secure in your power base, you can act the way you want. You replied, money is freedom. They said the amount of money circulating, I'm reading the transcript, the amount of money circulating in our community today is powerful, and we haven't realizing it in a meaningful way. And you said, give me the specifics. And 9 days later, you took $10,000 from people who were then indicted. It's in your reports. Why'd you do it?
Sir,
was it worth it?
You know what? This is a theatrical performance.
This is the truth. This is what accountability looks like, of which you've had none. You helped fraudsters defraud your state and this government of $9 billion, and you got a fat campaign contribution out of it. You ought to be indicted.
True. Well,
that's the truth.
I think we've made the point. Let's keep the tenor just
for the record.
I'll ask how I want to,
he's lying,
Paul.
and that's the truth.
Oh no, this is all on the record, sir. Did you bother Did you bother to investigate where the money that you facilitated their fraud for, where it went? Do you know where it went, what it was used for, the fraudulent money? I do, because we just heard testimony about it yesterday.
Because we were key players in the
hundreds of millions of dollars to terrorist groups, to transnational criminal organizations, to the drug trade, to drug trafficking, to child trafficking. And you took $10,000
That's a lie.
And helped them do it. You know, the other thing is, whistleblowers came to you as early as 2019. Let's look. As early as 2019, whistleblowers. Don't talk over me.
No,
as early as 2019, it's my hearing, pal. As early as 2019.
Don't call me
whistleblowers came to, well, I should call you prisoner because you ought to be in jail.
Well, we'll see what you can do.
In 2019, whistleblowers came to you in your office and referred to you fraud allegations from Feeding Our Futures, and you blew them off. Listen, your own state newspaper investigated it. The Minnesota Star Tribune, the Partners in Nutrition, brought its concerns to the Attorney General's office in 2018 and in 2019, and you did nothing. You did nothing for years. The only action you took is, once all these fraudsters came to your office and asked you to get involved and offered you money, then you got involved. Then you took the money, and then you got involved.
They did not come to my office. You're completely wrong about that.
You met with them for 54 minutes, and you took $10,000, and they also gave your family money. They gave your family thousands of dollars in campaign contributions in addition to what they gave
false
you.
statement.
Let's put the
This is, this is completely
The
untrue.
New York Post.
Yeah, we know the New York Post.
Minnesota Keith Ellison, AG, accepted campaign donations from individuals linked to the $250 million COVID fraud scheme after they were in your office. The donations came on December 20th.
Sir,
you met with them on December the 11th, and on January 20th, the FBI knocked over their headquarters.
No.
That's the sequence of events here.
No, it's not.
You've been right at the center of this fraud thing from the beginning, and you've enabled it. And, sir,
the false
you
statement,
should resign.
And, sir, you should resign. I was thinking the same thing about you.
Should resign.
I was thinking the exact same thing about you.
I'm sure after encountering this truth, you are, because it hurts to have accountability, doesn't it?
Because after this parade of lies and presentation,
Time has
I think you should be
expired.
ashamed for misrepresentation.
Time has expired.
Thank you. Mr. Nisko, I'll start with you. Just a basic question, just to kind of level set. We can have the three of you just answer decently, quickly. Do you think that people who are here in this country illegally, meaning they either entered illegally or overstayed a visa, should be deported? Yes, simple yes or no.
The rule of law, yes.
Mr. Ellison?
Do they have an asylum petition pending?
You get your microphone.
If they have a pending asylum petition, I think it should be heard. If they have some basis for their presence in the country, I think ordinary due process should take place.
Yeah, it's just from my perspective, simple. I'm not a big shot lawyer like you. Just a quick question. If you enter the country illegally or you overstay a visa, should you be deported?
My simple answer is, sir, it depends.
Okay, so if somebody breaks into your home, should they be arrested for breaking and entering, or does it depend?
It's an entirely different scenario.
How's that?
Because immigration is essentially a civil, and the breaking into my home is a criminal matter.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So if there's laws that should be enforced, so we shouldn't enforce civil violations?
We absolutely should enforce them.
But you just said that it's a civil matter, so it's different. So if somebody
you enforce
creates
civil matters.
So if somebody commits a civil infraction, it shouldn't be enforced?
It should be.
Okay, so they should be deported.
No, they should have due process that is associated with their petition. So,
again,
for example,
so the act of entering the country illegally, you think we should say, well, did you really do it or not do it? It's pretty obvious that they did, right?
well, I mean, it would depend on the facts of the situation, and then they might say,
I just gave you the facts.
Right,
They
but-
entered the country without permission.
but Senator, what if they had a good faith basis to say they would be persecuted in their home country and subjected to real oppression there? Under international law, there are provisions for them to make a case.
That's a phenomenal point. Mexico and Canada, do you consider those to be safe countries or no?
Generally, I do, but there are certain
generally you do?
Wow, well, I mean, I would just say this.
You border Canada. Don't insult your neighbors to the north.
No, I love my neighbors to the north.
Well, so
but
is it a generally safe country?
generally, yes.
So then
But-
somebody seeking asylum could certainly be safe in Canada and Mexico, no?
Now, so like if somebody, we do know that in Mexico, which is another country I truly admire and think it's a wonderful country, but there have been cases of persecution, people who have legitimate
But
fear.
people aren't safe in Mexico? Refugees cannot be safe in Mexico?
Some might not be. And I think, and
So
what I'm
maybe,
saying,
maybe
Senator,
we shouldn't have a free trade agreement with them then.
I didn't say that, but what I would say, Senator, is that we should hear their petition.
Gotcha.
We should at least hear it out. We should say, is there a well-founded and legitimate fear of persecution in your home
That
country?
can't happen in Mexico?
Well, I think that she should just follow the international protocols that existed. And
It is, which is that you seek asylum in your nearest country that you are seeking asylum in. But it sounds to me that your answer is no. Mr. Schnell?
Senator, if I were to answer yes or no, it would be misleading. And I think ultimately it does boil down to due process.
It actually is pretty staggering that the easiest question that I could possibly ask is confusing for the two of you. I mean, that's decently disgusting. And I'm going to tell you why from my perspective. I wasn't born in this country. My mom and dad had to follow the rules to bring me and my 6 siblings into the United States. And I find it disgusting that the two of you guys want to reward people who skip the line, pay drug cartel members to smuggle them across the border, are coached to say exactly the right words when they hit Border Patrol. And by the way, the people who do that, the people who are from my neck of the woods, from South and Latin America, get abused, get raped, get held at gunpoint because people like you say, oh, it's okay, maybe we'll allow them into the country, when we should have a very simple policy, which is you can't enter our country illegally and you can't overstay your visa. The fact that the two of you are top law enforcement people in your state and you can't simply say, hey, violating a civil or criminal offense is a problem is probably the origin of why we have these issues. Let's move on for something else. Mr. Ellison, as the Attorney General of the state of Ohio, I'm sorry, the state of Minnesota, you would never get elected in Ohio. Who's Victoria Harwell? Because you haven't said her name. I'm just curious who she is.
Is there a question you'd like to ask me?
Yeah, who is she?
As I understand it, she's a very unfortunate, tragic victim of a crime.
Okay, and what have you done about it?
Well, in Minnesota, sir, I prosecute crimes that are.
What have you done for Victoria
I'm
Harwell?
telling you about my jurisdiction.
I'm just telling you what you've done for
No,
Victoria Harwell.
I'm telling you about my
No,
jurisdiction.
but I didn't ask you a question about your jurisdiction. If I
has
did,
to-
you could answer that one, but I haven't. So just tell me about Victoria Harwell. Just tell me maybe the answer is nothing, which is fine. Just tell me what you've done for Victoria Harwell.
We have done everything that the law allows us to do.
Okay. And she's an American citizen, right?
I assume so, yes.
You haven't even bothered to look into who she is?
No, sir. What I'm telling you is that I don't know, what her nationality is. It doesn't mean I don't know anything. It means I don't know that.
Well, thank you for your concern for the Harwell family. It's obviously pretty sad that the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota has not even bothered to understand who she is. And you haven't mentioned her in her testimony, but you certainly know who Renee Good and Alex Preddy are.
I do.
Yeah, so obviously your priorities are clearly obvious. Tell me about Temple Israel. What happened there?
Well, my dear friend of mine is the
That would be the answer to
lead
your
rabbi
question
at Temple Israel.
Could you just answer my question, please?
Well, a lot of things happen there. Do you have something in mind you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, any particular incidents happen of
Well,
anti-Semitism?
there have been acts of anti-Semitism there.
What have you done about it?
Of which I oppose vigorously. We've supported local law enforcement in doing the right thing in those communities. Let me tell you, you're asking me about a place I know a lot about. I've been to Temple Israel an untold number of times, and so if they ever have any security concerns, that is a concern of mine.
And
Absolutely.
so what have you actually done differently to help fight anti-Semitism in Minnesota?
I speak against anti-Semitism. I condemn it as repugnant and wrong.
Let's pause there. You speak against anti-Semitism. Will you condemn Louis Farrakhan's comments saying that Judaism is a dirty religion?
Sir, I thought I was coming here to talk about immigration
That was
policy.
a layup question, by the way.
No. I thought I was talking about immigration policy. I didn't know that we were going to be talking about.
Hold up, man. First of all, man, you sure you want to do that, man? You want to go ahead and start talking about immigration policies, brother? Mr. Keith Ellison, check it out, man. For one, man, you set the immigrants up, man, to rob and steal your little state over there, man. You did nothing about it, man. But now you sitting here in front of Congress cocky about it. Cocky. This guy right here, Keith Ellison, him and his man, the little short governor Tim Walz, and that Ilmar, the whole cabal, and the mayor Fry, they're all stealing over there. They're all putting the illegal aliens before the American citizens. Check it out, man. Go see what's going on over there in Minnesota, man. Keith Ellis and his goons are bugging out over there. Let's get back into this, man.
All these matters. I'm reluctant to just sort of. We already had one thing where we didn't mention immigration policy at all. I'm fine with you asking about questions around asylum and things like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. But now we're going off in all kind of different directions. I think there should be some scope to this hearing. And so, thank you for your interest. And we both share a need to condemn anti-Semitism.
A few of my colleagues have gone over time, Mr. Chairman. So I find it disgusting that we would have a witness who's the Attorney General of a state that will not condemn the fact that somebody said that Judaism is a dirty religion. The fact that we have a witness of that low caliber here before the United States Congress is an insult to this institution.
Thank you for the witnesses for being here today. I think this is one of the most pressing issues facing our country, and it is the most pressing issue facing our country because of what we saw over the last 4 years. On a conservative estimate under the last administration, 11 million people flooded, I would argue, were pushed into our country, sometimes done on a quota system under the Biden administration. Some estimates have it up to 20 million. Many of those didn't even come through checkpoints. They just came across without any sort of checking in, without any sort of claiming, without any sort of process. And many, many, many of those had criminal histories before they even got here. And I know this was a hard question to answer, but it should be an easy one. Mr. Ellison, you are the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota.
I'm not a, what question is that, Senator?
You're the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota.
I of course am, obviously.
Well,
I was introduced
you
that
didn't answer Senator Hawley, so I'm just trying to get that on the record. I will easily answer. Not only am I the newest United States Senator, I was the Attorney General for the state of Florida. Easy answer. We'll start there. So I'm going to take us back to 2021 when Biden reversed precedent of Democrat and Republican presidents going back in modern history and changed whether or not they were going to deport people here illegally that had committed felonies. Do you remember when that executive order came out where they said very specifically they were changing whether or not they would be deporting people here illegally committing felonies? Do you remember that?
I cannot say I have a tight recollection of that.
I remember it because I was the Attorney General, which is often referred to as the top cop or the top law enforcement official or prosecutor in a state. I remember it because I was desperately getting calls from sheriffs around my state saying, I have somebody in here for burglary or drug trafficking, whatever. They are canceling detainers. Do you remember anybody coming to you and saying they're canceling detainers?
I remember we had a robust conversation around a range of issues, and what we did is evaluated Minnesota law and shared that information.
And what I mean by that is under the Biden administration, Mayorkas and everybody that was working on immigration started systematically breaking down the border. And not only that, which allowed for the 11 million to 20 million people to come in, not only that, they started telling law enforcement officials around the nation that had in their custody people here illegally committing crimes, don't hold them anymore. We're going to abandon precedent that used to be done under Democratic and Republican presidential administrations, and we're going to stop holding people here illegally committing crimes. Don't detain them because that's not our policy anymore. So what did I do as the top law enforcement official in the state of Florida, as the Attorney General? I sued the Biden administration immediately and fought back because my law enforcement officials had the trust in me that I would fight for the safety of our communities. It just came out recently after we had to bear the absolute devastation to this country as it related to immigration and crimes in our community under the Biden administration, that the Trump administration said that we have gotten out of your state tens of thousands of people here illegally with criminal backgrounds. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm sorry, are you asking me if committing crimes is a bad thing? The answer is yes.
Trump administration said they have removed from your state 10,000 people that were here illegally that had criminal backgrounds. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
If you're asking me are you asking me to rely on what the Trump administration has said?
Assume it is true, because I think you're going to debate me on this. They have removed tens of thousands of people across the country that are here illegally, that have committed crimes. They have a criminal background. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I agree with the general premise that we should remove the worst of the worst who are not authorized to be in the United States who commit crimes.
Okay, so if they're here illegally and they've committed burglary, should they be removed? What was that?
Ma'am,
You said yes, I just couldn't hear you.
Ma'am, look, I think I answered your question.
You didn't. I'm asking you now.
If you're asking me,
This is a simple question. As the
if somebody
top cop of
commits
Minnesota,
a crime,
if someone burglarizes someone's home
crime,
and they're here illegally, should they be deported?
if somebody
This is not
commits a
trick
felony
question.
offense, I mean, but it's.
Okay, let me make it simple. If they are drug trafficking and they are in Minnesota and they're here illegally, should they be deported?
Have they been convicted?
Let's assume they've been convicted.
Yeah.
Okay. If they have have broken into people's homes or committed theft, or let me go as far as saying if they've committed fraud and they're here illegally, should they be deported?
Have they been convicted?
If they are in the process and they have a background of a criminal conviction for any crime, should they be deported?
People who have been convicted and are not authorized to be in the country should be removed.
Okay, if they've been convicted and they have an application in process or they've claimed asylum, should they be removed?
Don't we need to find, I mean,
If they have a criminal conviction for fraud and they're here
Yes.
illegally, or they have a process pending, should they be removed?
if they have a criminal conviction for felony fraud and they're unauthorized to be in the country, they should be removed.
So do you think it would shock the federal government when in January of 2026, you said, and I quote, we're not going to help the Trump administration. We're not going to devote the resources of our state to help the Trump administration. That's not our business. We're not going to help them. We're not going to do their bidding.
I'm glad you asked me.
Hold on. Do you think it would surprise an administration who's trying to go back and rid communities of people here illegally that are committing crimes to have the top law enforcement officer of the state said, we're not going to help them?
So, Senator, here's the thing. The federal government is a government of limited and enumerated powers, among them immigration enforcement.
Do you think you should help remove people here illegally that have committed crimes? Should you help the administration?
We should obey Minnesota and federal law. That's what we should do.
Does it surprise you that you said you think you have 7 counties that have entered into 287G out of 87 counties, 7? Would it surprise you that Florida has every one of our counties signed up to help the administration rid our communities of those that are here legally committing crimes?
It would neither surprise me or not surprise me.
Does it surprise you that
states
you're
are
having
different.
all of these problems in Minnesota because you have a top cop that won't help rid its community of those here illegally committing crimes?
You know what?
It's a tale of 2 states, a tale of 2 attorney generals, and how this is all playing out. It should surprise no one in this country. And in fact, let me go a step further. It should surprise no one in this country that the problems that we have had in your state as a result of a top cop not working with law enforcement to make its community safe and rid people here committing crimes, that you're seeing what has played out. And let me just say,
that's actually wrong. That's actually quite wrong.
You cannot have an attorney general
certainly disagree with that.
Post pictures supporting Antifa with an expectation you are going to have a civilized, stable, safe community that works with federal law enforcement to deport criminals here illegally committing crime. That is a joke. And it is also the reason why you have a crisis in law enforcement ranks. You have such a high vacancy rate in your state because no one that wears a badge and does these dangerous jobs believes that their top cop supports them. And as the wife of a law enforcement officer, I think that is a shame, and your state deserves better.
Senator, I thought we were going to have a real conversation. I'd be happy to have one, but now I know that you don't really want one, so congratulations on your theater.
Expired.
Talk about the kind of arrest, because we heard from here, and quite honestly, I didn't get the complete answer from the fellow from the prisons when he said, as long as there's a judicial order. And I was wondering, does he mean from an Article 3 judge, or is he talking about the administrative law judges that we use for enforcement of ICE? So was that a distinction? Were they only going to honor and they only going to cooperate with Article 3 judicial orders? Or did they concede the fact that we handle federal immigration law through the administrative law judges?
So I would defer to ICE on what the normal processes were.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes, sir. I can speak to that. It's both, sir, judicial and administrative. They did not cooperate at all. I can give you an example.
Well, please give me multiple examples.
I can give you an example where ICE, Enforcement Removal Operations and Homeland Security Investigations, we did execute a criminal warrant for an individual from Ecuador who fled the state of Connecticut that was wanted for the state of Connecticut for a rape of a 14-year-old minor. He did have a murder warrant from Ecuador, and we did not have any cooperation with that. Going back to the surge part, we did have that.
Just describe no cooperation. I mean, so
we had
walk through here. So you got this warrant on somebody who's, convicted of, or I guess convicted of of a violent crime or just wanted on a violent crime? I mean, be specific. Talk about this instance.
This incident, sir, the subject was wanted from the state of Connecticut, fled the state of Connecticut after a detainer was not honored in the state of Connecticut. He was wanted for rape of a 14-year-old minor.
But he wasn't convicted. They made a big deal about, oh, it's got to be a convicted criminal.
No, sir, it was an actual criminal warrant from the state of Connecticut. And that subject was also wanted on an Interpol warrant because he was wanted for homicide in his home country. And he was also illegal reentry, 8 U.S.C. 1326. So it was
But you understand the point. Again, they were making a big point. It has to be convicted. A.G. Ellison kept saying, well, is the person convicted of the crime?
Well, sir, I think we have to start first, is the person even supposed to be in the country in the first place?
I understand. but so I'm just trying to point out, is that a valid criteria? The Attorney General Ellison was talking about, well, if as long as this person's been convicted of a crime, that's not required, is it?
No, sir.
The person's here illegally. There's a warrant from, from a different country as well as from state of Connecticut. So with this individual, what did Minnesota not do? What was requested in Minnesota or Hennepin County or whichever?
So, sir, the Minneapolis Police Department and the St. Paul Police Department, they're, by city orders, they don't cooperate with us. So, for instance, we asked them to hold a perimeter or hold a street. That's why we need more offset agents. We would have to go ahead and hold down that city block. Unfortunately, obviously, those vehicles do stick out. Obviously, we used, based on the subject's criminal history, we used an armored vehicle. Once that's seen, agitators started coming to the scene. So now while we're trying to effectuate a criminal arrest warrant in an apartment building, small stairwell, fatal funnel, we have to go ahead and hold down the outer perimeter, where if we had the cooperation of a state or local agency to work with us on that fact, we wouldn't have to have that many officers.
Why weren't the state and local officials interested in arresting this individual with the multiple warrants on them? Just because it was an illegal immigrant?
Because it involved an ICE operation, sir.
So any other, if it's an American citizens with that kind of warrant from Connecticut, local police would have been doing this job themselves?
I can't speak for him, but I would assume so, sir. I was a civilian police. I was a cop before ICE, and that's what we did.
So we just watched on the video of previously American citizens that were basically being manhandled and pushed and hit and beaten with canisters. We didn't see on the video, but 95% of them, or 90+% of Americans who have seen that video, also shot, Alex Preddy shot 10 times while laying face down in the back by law enforcement officers. And we also know he was basically just holding a phone, being manhandled and shot 10 times. So I just want to confirm with you, filming federal officers on a public street is not illegal, is it, Mr. Scott, Mr. Lyons?
Correct.
No, sir.
He did not, at least looking at the video, all of us who've watched the video, he did not attempt to harm law enforcement. No appearance of that. Is that correct?
I don't know what happened once he was on the ground, sir.
When he was laying face down with several people
With the
on top
weapon
of
in
him?
his waistband initially. And I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just saying I can't jump to that conclusion because I don't know what happened on the ground. That's why there's an investigation still ongoing. Standing up, I would agree with what you just said.
Okay. So when he's on the ground with a bunch of officers on top of him after he's been hit with a canister, he was somehow still possibly harm to law enforcement, you're saying? It's possible?
That's happened thousands of times, yes. And
Okay. Mr. Lyons, really? You saw him that as a possible threat?
Sir, from the, that wasn't an ICE operation, that was a CBP operation.
I get it, but you're a highly trained professional.
Yes, sir. No, obviously, there's not enough evidence to speak to, but that's the best thing about this is the fact that I can speak for ICE, Office of Professional Responsibility, as well as CBPs, that they're the same, that we have to have a full investigation, and it has to come out.
Okay.
We have to base that training on that.
So you have to have a full investigation. What everybody saw in the video, there might be some extenuating circumstances. We just don't know, but the video is very clear. And yet we had the Trump administration claim that he was attempting to inflict mass casualties. You're going to have to explain how you had that come to that, how the Trump administration came to that conclusion when you can't even come to the conclusion that he may have been resisting when he was laying flat on his back with being beaten. How did they come to the fact that he was going to have those mass casualties? And then, quote, Secretary Noem said he was committing, quote, an act of domestic terrorism. What you saw in the video, Is that what you train your officers? Someone laying on the ground, that's an act of domestic terrorism? Commissioner Scott and Acting Lyons, did you provide Secretary Noem with an assessment of what Mr. Petty was engaged in and that he was engaged in domestic terrorism? Is that why she said that? Is because you told her? That was your belief at that time, even though you need an awful lot of investigation now to know exactly what happened. Are you the ones that told her that?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Did anyone who reports to either of you provide this assessment to Secretary Noem that this was mass casualty, or he was attempting to inflict mass casualties and domestic terrorism? Did someone in your staff tell her that?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
No,
So
sir.
why would Secretary Noem, why would she tell the public that this was an act of domestic terrorism when right in the heat of the moment? How would she possibly come to that kind of conclusion to tell the American public that when they're watching this video?
I can't speculate on what someone else would say or why, sir.
Mr. Lyons?
Sir, I can't speculate to what the Secretary thought at that time, sir.
So it seems to me a really big question, which means that we have to have Secretary Noem here. She deserves it to the American people deserve to have the Secretary, the person who is responsible to, you are responsible to, and all the men and women ICE answer to her. She needs to be before this committee. She ducks coming out in public and talking and hasn't accepted prior invitations to come to this committee. I would hope the chairman would invite her, because this is an important question. How could you come to those conclusions, those narratives, before any evidence was there, even after all that's happened since then? You too are telling me you don't have enough evidence, even though it looks so clear on the video. It should have looked really clear to her if she looked at the video, if she had it that close. A lot of this got posted pretty quickly. How she came to those conclusions, I don't expect you to know that. You didn't provide any information to her, which makes me question it even more. If she got no information from you in the chain of command, how would you come up with that kind of narrative if the chain of command wasn't doing it?
Mr. Scott, I wanted to start with you. Do you agree with Mr. Lyons' thoughts that he shared with us just a moment ago, that statements from senior leaders in the immediate aftermath of an incident could bias assessments?
I don't know what information they had at that time, sir. I'm not going to speculate on why they said what they said.
Well, you said that the FBI has purview over the investigation regarding Alex Peretti. Is that correct?
Correct.
So immediately after the shooting and killing of Alex Peretti, Kash Patel, our FBI director, said, quote, "You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have the right to break the law and incite violence." I wanted to ask if you have confidence in the FBI investigation of this killing.
I do have confidence in the FBI's investigation of this incident, because those agents out there are professionals. They're trained. They're going to collect the evidence. They're going to collect the interviews, and they're going to present their findings to a U.S. attorney, to a district attorney, or a grand jury.
Mr. Lyons, with regards to Renee Good, there was some reporting that came out saying that FBI agents equipped with a signed warrant prepared to document blood splatter and bullet holes in Miss Good's SUV. They received orders to stop. The orders came supposedly from senior officials, including Kash Patel. Do you think a sufficient enough investigation is happening into the killing of Renee Good right now?
So, sir, I can't speak to that because I'm not aware of those decisions. But what I can tell you, sir, and the commitment from ICE, especially from the Office of Professional Responsibility, is we did secure those firearms. We did secure that scene properly, and we turned over our evidence to the FBI, and we're standing by at the end of their investigation, the conclusion of the outcome, to conduct our internal review at that point.
I just want to convey that there is just a huge trust gap here. I mean, just absolute zero trust in this being able to, for this administration, be able to conduct an independent investigation into these killings. And I just urge you, just continue to push on this, because without that, I don't think we're going to be able to move forward. And when we see these types of statements from whether Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, from Kash Patel and others, it is absolutely putting a black mark over anything that is happening on the ground. Mr. Lyons, were you the one that recommended the surge in Minnesota?
So, sir, Operation Metro Surge, which was
that your idea?
Metro Surge for the fraud investigation, yes, sir.
So you're the one that suggested and recommended 3,000 plus agents to go to Minnesota?
Sir, I asked for more support for the amount of protest and the amount of assault on officers, I requested more support.
So now we see Homan say that the surge is going to be stopping. Where are those ICE agents going to go next?
They'll return back to the home station, sir.
Are you going to refrain from using this type of surge tactic in other states after you've seen just the level of crisis and lack of confidence and just the chaos that it unleashed in Minnesota?
Sir, one thing for sure is there's no ICE officer or special agent that wanted that type of chaos that you referred to happen. I think going forward now, I think you see more after the conversations with officials in Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota, what partnership can look like as far as local level.
Well, what I'm
And I don't
asking
think
you
we'll
is
see
about,
that.
have you learned a lesson here? That this is something, I mean, if you pull out from Minnesota, but then now you do a similar type surge, 2,000, 3,000 in another state, is that something you'd still consider after what occurred in Minnesota?
Sir, in regards to every law enforcement operation, of course we go back, we look at lessons learned, we always look back. At the end, the ownership of that is mine. So I have to go ahead and look at evaluations of what we did, what worked, what didn't work. But one thing, sir, if I could just have 1 second to say it, the problem, I believe, is the fact that, like some of the things that I brought up earlier, the agitators and the coordination on the protest side, we have no problem, Senator Kim, with people protesting. Happens all the time. But it's that coordination, like I said, when you have flyers out there instructing people how to get in between, whether it's a CBP officer or ICE officer making an arrest, that's the problem. And that's what I hope that we can help, especially with this committee and other committees, the fact that situations like that won't happen, that people can go out there and protest. But why are we going to encourage individuals to go out there and impede and put themselves in harm's way? I think that's the lesson learned from this.
Mr. Edlow, I wanted to bring you in on this. There was an incident that happened in San Diego. Spouses of military members and veterans were going to get interviewed for green card, and they were arrested upon arrival at their interviews. Tell us what happened. Was that USCIS agents that arrested them?
No, Senator. Excuse me. No, Senator. Anyone who comes to a USCIS interview who has an outstanding want or warrant may find themselves subject to facilitated arrest in which ICE or local or state
So you're
law
attesting
enforcement
right
will come.
now that all of these spouses of military members and veterans had an outstanding arrest?
Senator,
outstanding
I'm
warrant?
not aware of the specific cases you're referring to. I'm happy
But you
to
should
talk to
come
you and
prepared
yours.
to be able to talk through these.
I'm
It was
happy
very
to
high
talk to
profile.
your staff
But was it
about that.
USCIS or was that coordinated with ICE?
Again, Senator, depending on who comes to our office and
Have
who
you
has
ever
a warrant or
shared
warrant.
with ICE details of when and where interviews for green cards and other administrative processes for interviews and immigration take place? Have you ever shared that information with ICE?
Senator, what concerns me is that in previous years, there was no communication between USCIS, ICE, and CBP.
Just asking you a question. Have you
there is better
shared the
coordination now than
location
there
and
has
the
been.
timing of
The
interviews?
location is at our offices, and if someone is subject to arrest or detention, we will communicate with ICE. And anyone who comes into a federal building, any federal building, should expect to be arrested if they have an outstanding want or warrant.
Mr. Lyons, in New Jersey, one 6-year-old girl was left unsupervised wandering the streets asking for her father after ICE arrested the man while he was picking up food. I wanted to ask if you can explain this action, and can you commit to providing my office with a briefing within 30 days of what happened and took place in Morristown, New Jersey?
Sir, I don't have knowledge of that, but I do commit to you. I'll investigate that and we'll get back to you. But just if I could just say, sir, that is not the standard that ICE goes by. We take care of children, and I'll commit to you that we'll get you that information.
Well, it certainly didn't happen in this circumstance, and again, it has left the community shaken. So I will follow up with you and get that information so we can have clarity on what happens next. With that, I yield back.
I want the chance to make sure you give your trust back to ICE that we don't do that, sir. I commit to that.
The Constitution of the United States, specifically the Fourth Amendment. This picture is of ICE agents forcing their way into the Minneapolis home of Garrison Gibson, banging down the door, detaining Mr. Gibson in front of his wife, Tiana, and their 10-year-old daughter and niece who happened to be there at the time. I don't know whether you're familiar with what happened here. It's one of many, many, many similar incidents that have happened all around the country. And it was done pursuant to what is called an administrative warrant. I'm going to hold up a copy of that warrant, signed by an SDDO, who is, I believe, a member of the ICE workforce, another agent, a supervisory detention and deportation officer, not a judge, correct?
Correct, Senator.
So, in effect, this is not a warrant, it's a permission slip. It's a green light from another ICE agent to go bash down a door, smash into a home, detain and arrest someone without a judge finding probable cause and without any sort of objective, independent finding. Is that correct?
No, sir. So the I-205 is the arrest warrant, but the I-205 is based on an executable final order issued by an immigration judge from the Department of Justice.
And that order is from an immigration judge who is part of the executive branch, not an independent judge. But the warrant issued is simply a permission slip. Now, let's be very clear. You were a local police officer.
Yes, sir.
To bang down a door, barge into someone's home, if you're the FBI or a local police officer, you need a judicial warrant from a judicial officer, a judge, who is going to find or not probable cause, which has a specific meaning under the law. These ICE agents are banging down doors, doing the same thing without that kind of judicial warrant. What is so different about ICE that it regards itself as an exception to the Fourth Amendment? And the requirement for a judicial warrant is a Fourth Amendment requirement.
We don't, Senator. There is case law, U.S. versus Lucas, 2007, which is out of the 8th District of Minnesota, which authorizes the entry of a home to catch a fugitive based on an administrative warrant.
I beg your pardon, sir. It does not abrogate the Fourth Amendment. It does not say that ICE agents or CPP agents can simply bash down doors and barge into people's homes, terrorize their children, detain and arrest people without a judicial warrant. And there is nothing different about what ICE does as compared to the FBI or local police that would justify it. The policy that they're acting under, in fact, is the result of a memo that you issued in May. You're familiar with it.
Yes, sir.
Has your signature.
Yes, sir.
Which says, in effect, they don't need judicial warrants. They can act on the basis of the 205 warrant that you've just described, which is administrative. It's not judicial.
Let's talk more about it.
Why did you keep this memo secret?
I didn't keep that memo secret, sir. It was blasted
Well,
out.
we learned about it when 2 whistleblowers came to us and said that you were using it as a basis for the policy. It was never announced publicly. It was never released to the press or the American people. Why did you keep it secret?
Sir, I didn't keep it secret. If sending an email to a workforce of 30,000 people is keeping something secret, it's a bad secret.
It never reached those people.
Yes, sir, it did.
Well,
The email did, sir. Yes, sir. I can work with your committee to get,
let
and your
me,
staff to get that.
let me move to another topic. You stated on Tuesday, quote, no U.S. citizen is subject to immigration enforcement, and that doesn't happen. If a U.S. citizen is detained in the course of the immigration investigation, they are quickly released. I ask unanimous consent that a report that we did, the ranking member staff did, entitled Unchecked Authority. It documents 22 U.S. citizens being detained and assaulted by immigration agents, as well as written statements from 8 U.S. citizens who have been detained, shot at, and nearly killed by ICE agents who came to speak.
Without objection.
Thank you. So let's take George Reitz, for example. He's an Army veteran, a father from California, trying to go to work. He said he was tear gassed and held for 3 days without charges. Is he lying?
Sir, ICE wasn't involved in that arrest, sir.
Were you mistaken when you said that no U.S. citizen is subject to immigration enforcement?
No, sir.
Well, who's lying, you or him?
Sir, I'm speaking for the men and women of ICE in my operation. I didn't arrest that individual, sir.
But the facts contradict what you said. Will you admit that you don't know, for example, about Alaya Rahman, a disabled woman from Minneapolis? She came to this hearing. She testified before our Spotlight forum, violently dragged from her car, detained without medical attention until she passed out. She lying, or are you lying?
No, sir, she's not lying.
Well, then you were mistaken when you said no U.S. citizen has been detained.
No, sir, I said no U.S. citizens subject to immigration law and deportation or removal. ICE does
Well, that's
detain.
a circular argument. She
I don't-
wasn't subject to immigration law because she's a U.S. citizen, but she was detained, and that contradicts directly, as does your statement applied to Miramar Martinez, who was almost killed, shot 7 times by CPP agents. It is true of Diana Figueroa, who told us she was violently dragged from her car after dropping her son at school, thrown into a van, also detained. Is she lying?
No, sir. But, sir, you know, I've worked personally with you on many cases when you come to me on constituents, especially in Connecticut when I was a field office director in New England. You know that I am transparent and we do not lie. So to say that we're lying is
I
incorrect,
asked you
sir.
first whether you were mistaken when you said that no U.S. citizen, I'm quoting, is subject to immigration enforcement.
Correct, sir.
Enforcement.
Enforcement
I
is
would
an
call
arrest,
that-
removal.
I would call that misconduct enforcement.
One of the things that came up earlier was this idea that there used to be an instantaneous portal between, I guess, ICE and the prisons where you were arresting, that initially you were just getting this information seamlessly, very quickly, not manually. It was an automatic portal, but that was stopped under Mayorkas. Mr. Lyons, is that true, or
Yes, sir, it's true.
have y'all tried to restart it?
We have restarted it with multiple agencies, sir. And, sir,
go ahead.
just for the record, sir, I will say, again, to the Commissioner for the Department of Corrections, we do have a great relationship with them. We do take individuals from them. You know, there was a report released where we didn't take action on, I think he said 100, I think the number was a little bit more. But the fact that ICE didn't take action on a foreign-born citizen means the fact that they're not removable. There are many people in custody that have a green card, lawful resident, visa. So to say that was disingenuous.
Yeah, the other question I have is that, you know, we finally had the Attorney General say, oh, of course, if it's a final order. He was making a distinction, and I think it's not an unreasonable distinction. There's a difference between a final order and a detainer, legally and procedurally. But he said, oh, sure, we'll cooperate with ICE if we have a final order. And it sounds like most of the targets have final orders. I think Senator Langford indicated that. We'd like to know what the number is. But if 80% of them are final orders and you have 16,000 people that we'd like to remove from Minnesota, I would suggest that you publicly take him up on what he said. He said, oh, sure, we'll do it if there's a final order, because I think that you actually will win some of those arguments, and it's a better way to win those arguments than I think some of the ways we've tried.
Yes, sir. To that, what I would say is, state of Minnesota at Department of Corrections level, sure, they give us the final order, but it's when individuals are encountered at the local level or the county level in Minnesota. That was the issue that we were having. So they might stop somebody, identify them, they have a final order, have a criminal history, they re-release them back without notification to us.
Yeah, I'm talking about when you have a target and they're not corresponding to you. So you send them an email, I've got this target, will you send 10 Minneapolis police? Is that ever happening? Are you ever having Minneapolis police go to help you make an arrest?
You know, we would never have them make the arrest or go with us for us. We would use them for like site security, perimeter security. You know, in almost every jurisdiction in the states, we do that. But then if they say, you know, they can't go because it's immigration enforcement, so be it.
I know he's made a lot of orders in the opposite direction. I'm just saying I would test him in the direction of the things he admitted
Yes, sir.
that he says he would do. I think pushing forward with that is a good idea. The other thing that came to my mind is if you don't have a final order, and he's making the distinction, well, detainer's not really an order, and we're not going to, you said there are other states that do this, we're not going to keep you beyond your 3 years in prison, even 1 day on a detainer because it's not really order. If somebody's in prison for 3 years, why don't we do why don't they go through immigration court while they're there and get final orders? Who's in charge of that? Is there, if we notify you on day one, is it you or is it some other agency? On day one, someone's here, he's here in the country illegally, he's going to be in for 3 years. That's certainly a lot of time. Certainly, we ought to be able to prosecute him while he's in prison.
We do, sir. Many states we do that. It's the institutional removal program, IRP. Massachusetts, New Hampshire, we do that. While they're in custody, we go ahead and put them through immigration proceedings. So that way there's no cost to American taxpayers as well. The day they're released, their travel is already arranged and they go straight to the plane.
I would say it avoids that controversy then, and the more of that you can do, the better to get to the final stage so you don't have to encounter the argument on a detainer.
Thank you for being here. I personally think that Secretary Noem should be here. You want the big job, you have the big accountability. And we should be seeing the Secretary of Homeland Security coming in front of the American people and certainly the Oversight Committee when we have such existential issues about the deployment of federal force in our country going on. But you are here in her place. And I think, you know, if we rewound the tape to a year and a half ago or a year plus ago, you had a lot of Americans who felt very strongly that if you are here illegally, especially if you were involved in any kind of criminal activity, you should be deported, right? You need strong borders. I'm a CIA officer, you need strong borders. We need an immigration policy that allows us to do that, but that enforcement would have been something that the average American supported. But the conduct of ICE in places like Minneapolis has now boomeranged to the point where people say, well, look, I was for enforcement, but I'm not for what looks like authoritarian style, federal goons on our streets. And that's not coming from Democrats. That's coming from, in Michigan, the state of Michigan voted for Donald Trump. It's coming from people who say, look, I'm all for enforcement, but I'm not for trampling basic rights. And Americans have an internal barometer for what looks and smells authoritarian, and whether it's shooting someone who's unarmed or pepper spraying kids or picking people up as they walk into Target and checking their papers, that is an internal barometer that we all have that you have crossed. And we're here today and all this firestorm is here not because of people on the ground, but because of your behavior in ICE. And, I think when you extrapolate out and you listen to what the president and his cabinet are saying, I have to ask about our 2026 elections. Okay, the president says we should federalize our elections, even though the US Constitution was written by our founders to give that power to the states so that we would never have a president who took too much power and tried to become a king. He's tried to get voter rolls, including in my state. He's complained that elections aren't free and fair. In 2020, he came up with a playbook to deploy federal law enforcement around polling places, and the White House spokeswoman will not rule that out as of a month and a half ago. So I have to ask Mr. Lyons, do you believe that ICE has the authority to be deployed to U.S. polling places around the country?
So, ma'am, we're civil. Obviously, we do civil enforcement and criminal law enforcement. There's no reason for us to deploy to a polling facility.
So
No.
if the President of the United States gets Kristi Noem on the phone and she gets you on the phone and she says, we've heard there's a problem in Georgia or in Michigan or somewhere else, I need you to go and physically deploy around polling locations, you will say no.
There's no reason for us to deploy, ma'am.
Well, then you should say no, right?
Yes, but just point of clarification. Homeland Security investigations, we do investigate voter fraud, which we've made several arrests, most recently a high-profile one in Massachusetts. So just later on.
That's very different than the physical intimidation.
I just didn't want you to say that we don't do anything with voter. I just want you to know we do that.
That's fine. I'm talking about something that I think would be extraordinary in American history, which is uniformed and masked ICE agents encircling polling places. And it's not fantasy, it's not made up. These are things that the president and his cabinet have suggested. They've suggested invoking the Insurrection Act, which would allow active duty military to do the very same thing. So this isn't, someone who thinks the sky is falling. The president and his cabinet are suggesting. So you're going to be the guy standing in the breach.
There's no reason, like I say, ma'am, there's no reason for you to use ICE officers in that.
Great. Well, I hope that in the privacy of that meeting, when that comes down and the president feels like he's going to lose the midterm elections, that you don't buckle. Because I think our democracy literally is dependent on it. Now, coupled with that, you've heard from a number of my colleagues about labeling people as domestic terrorists. What is the definition of a domestic terrorist?
So, ma'am, domestic terrorist is any organization that, on American soil, home nation soil, that's involved in acts of treason, acts of violence, active extremism against a group or against a country.
Okay, so actually in law, it's defined by the Patriot Act. That's the clearest place we have it. And it has to be tied to criminal activity,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So protesting, even if you don't like it, protesting of ICE agents, unarmed and without destroying property, is that a domestic terrorist?
No, ma'am. I stated under oath earlier that that's covered under the First Amendment right.
Great. So when, again, the president and Stephen Miller and others in the cabinet, including your boss, Kristi Noem, label people like Renee Good domestic terrorists, you understand why we can't trust what you're doing with the information you're collecting on these so-called domestic terrorists. So can you tell us under oath, does the Department of Homeland Security maintain a database of any kind of domestic terrorists? Are you collecting facial recognition information, license plates, locations, addresses, those kinds of information?
No, ma'am, and I testified under oath on Tuesday as well. I said the same thing. We don't have a database. If there is a case, a criminal case, that may involve some type of domestic terrorist organization, Homeland Security, as you know, Homeland Security investigation is involved across the board and embedded with the Joint Terrorism Task Force. We do conduct those, but there is no database, ma'am, for that.
Okay, or do you contribute data to anyone else's, any other federal agency's database?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so the fact that we have ICE agents saying out loud to people that they're trying to arrest or engage with that we're going to put you into a database is just erroneous. They're making that up.
Yes, ma'am, I can't speak to why that officer said it, but we do not do that.
Well, I would just offer that given that the president put out an executive order in September and said he wants a list of domestic terrorist groups to use the full weight of the federal government to go against, you can imagine that people who are peaceful protesters feel like they are going to be targeted and feel that they are at risk. So I think the conduct of your agency has put us in a position where the average American doesn't know whether to trust law enforcement, and that is terrible and scary, given what law enforcement on the ground in our states do. And I would just say, if we do not have serious reform and change, then you will be contributing to the average American who woke up very supportive of law enforcement, being terrified that they and their community will be next.
A couple nights ago, I met with a woman who works as a cashier at a grocery store, and I told her I was coming to see you, Mr. Lyons, and she said will you ask him, and she didn't want to give her name. She was terrified to give her name. But she said, when I get off my shift around midnight and I walk through the parking lot to my car, she said, if somebody rolls up in an unidentified van and gets out wearing all black and their face is covered and they don't have any identification and they ask me to get into the van, how do I know who they are? How does she know, Mr. Lyons? How does she know if they're an ICE agent or bad guys?
Sir, ICE agents have identifiable placards on their uniforms as well as their badges representative, but you won't see ICE agents rolling through the parking lots and just snatching someone up. ICE does intelligence-driven, targeted enforcement operations.
Well, Mr. Homan and others have said that they target individuals based on the color of their skin and the accents that they speak, and that's why people are running through the fields and factories where they work. Director Lyons, last year you said in Phoenix at the Border Security Expo that you wanted to see a deportation process that was like, quote, Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Mr. Lyons, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a mom 3 times in the face?
None, sir, but you're also...
It's the square root of 0, that's right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but if we're going to go down that route of my comment, I did say that comment. However, that comment was taken out. If you go back and watch the video, I did say that we need to be more efficient when it comes to removing individuals from the United States, because ICE doesn't detain punitively. We detain to remove. I don't want to see people in custody. At the end of my statement was, and again, to your point, it was a industry day for AI and efficiencies, but I did say at the end of it, but we deal with human beings, so we can't be like them.
And speaking
That's
of human,
the key part that you're leaving out.
Well, speaking of human beings, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a nurse 10 times in the back?
None.
How many times has Amazon Prime dragged a woman out of her car by her hair and then dragged her down the street?
None.
How many ICE agents have been fired for their conduct under your leadership?
Sir, I can get you that data. I'll get that back to you.
Is it more than one?
I'm not going to speak about personnel actions, but I'll get you that data.
Can you tell us if at least, God, I hope at least one person has been fired for their conduct since these operations have begun? Are you telling us you can't even say one person's been fired?
Sir, I'm not going to talk about personnel actions, but we will get back to you.
But 2 people have been killed so far, is that right? A nurse named Preddy and a mom named Good. 2 people have been killed so far.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lyons, will you apologize to the family of Renee Good for being called a domestic terrorist by the president and his leadership?
No, sir.
Why not?
Sir, I welcome the opportunity to speak to the family in private, but I'm not going to comment on any active investigation.
Is she a domestic terrorist?
Sir, I'm not going to comment on the investigation, and the president and Secretary Noem are elected officials. That's their right to their comments, but as career law enforcement, we won't speak to any.
Do you agree with their comments?
Sir, I'm not going to go ahead and talk about any ongoing investigation.
Will you apologize to the family of Alex Preddy for also being called a domestic terrorist?
Sir, again, I'm not going to speak to any ongoing investigation.
Mr. Lyons, your staying to lead ICE is a decision.
Sir, I'm sorry. Could you repeat
Your
that?
staying on to lead ICE is a decision. And I've read your background. You have a decorated career. You've served in the military. You are what I would call otherwise employable. I think most people would agree this is not the only job that you can get. But since you've been on this job, women have been dragged by their hair through our streets. A 6-year-old child battling stage 4 cancer has been deported, and it turns out he was a U.S. citizen. People are running through the fields where they work. People who've gone to the streets as allies have been shot and publicly executed. It's a decision to stay on at this point. And considering your honorable service in the past and the dishonorable acts that those who have worked for you have conducted, and the disgraceful statements that the leadership above you have said, you now have a decision. Will you stand with the kids who you're supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
Why not?
Because, sir, that child that you're showing right there, the men and women of ICE took care of him when his father abandoned him and ran from law enforcement.
Time has expired.
You never should have gone
Gentleman's
into custody.
time has expired. I recognize the gentleman from Mississippi.
Commissioner Scott, Did the ICU nurse, Alex Preddy, deserve to die?
I cannot comment on an ongoing investigation, sir.
Do you believe that he deserved to die? Should he be killed by your agents?
I'm not going to comment on an ongoing investigation, sir, before it's concluded and all the facts are available.
Do you agree with CBP Commander Bovino's statement that Alex Preddy was planning to massacre law enforcement agents?
I'm not going to comment on an ongoing investigation, sir.
Director Lyons, did Renee Good deserve to die?
Sir, I can't comment on ongoing investigations.
Director Lyons, do you agree with Secretary Noem and Vice President Vance's characterization of Renee Good as a domestic terrorist?
Sir, I can't speak to their comments as that they're their own, but as an ongoing investigation, I can't speak to that.
Director Lyons, what did your agents mean when he said, "You raise your voice, I erase your voice," in the video just that we have seen, all of us have seen?
Sir, I'm not aware of that video that you have, sir. I can't comment on what that officer has said.
Does that statement, if I show you the video of that, does that statement reflect the value of your agency? And does ICE respect and adhere to the First Amendment?
Yes, sir, ICE does respect and refer to the First Amendment, but that doesn't respect, your statement that you said doesn't represent the values of the men and women of ICE.
Commissioner Scott, does CBP respect and adhere to the First and Second Amendment?
Yes, we do.
Don't you agree that Alex Preddy had every right to exercise his First and Second Amendment freedoms before being shot in the streets by one of your agents?
I believe that every person in the United States has a right to their constitutional rights.
Look, I have heard and seen enough. I'm just sick and tired of your agents running around in our cities, in our streets, causing illegal activities. ICE and CBP thugs are roaming our streets, attacking our communities, using our children as bait, referring to people as bodies and numbers, targeting people for their accents and the color of their skin, and killing American citizens, all while showing zero remorse for their actions. Director Lyons and Commissioner Scott, do you think President Trump will pardon you and your boss, Kristi Noem, before he leaves office, just like he has for insurrectionists and his political allies? Do you believe President Trump will pardon you? Go ahead.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of President Trump, but I'll tell you, I signed up for this job to protect America, and I'm very proud of the service that I provide, and I don't need a pardon from anybody.
Well, you better hope so. You better hope you get being pardoned, because you will be held accountable for the absolute disregard of the law your agencies have shown over the past year. Your agencies have lost the trust of the American people, with millions taking to the streets to protect the illegal actions of your agencies. And that's why I introduced a bill in the United States Congress to abolish ICE. ICE must be abolished. I also co-sponsored a bill to impeach Secretary Kristi Noem. And I believe Kristi Noem must be impeached. And this Congress must do everything in its power to carry out oversight actions against these rogues departments, including if
Gentleman's time has expired.
You know, a decade ago when I chaired this committee, Mr. Thompson,
and I passed a bill to authorize ICE into law. It was a bipartisan effort. It passed the House overwhelmingly, both Republican and Democrat. A decade later, here we are. The Dems have called to abolish ICE. Now they're trying to shut it down. So what has happened in that 10 years? Let's go back to the last 4 to 5 years. What happened in this country and at the border? As someone who lives in the border state of Texas, we saw the most dangerous, wide open border that I've seen in my 22 years in Congress. 10 to 12 million people, and that's what we know about. I think it's far greater, came into this country. Many of them dangerous, violent criminals, some known or suspected terrorists, which I find extremely dangerous. That's why I served as an impeachment manager for Mayorkas, because he violated federal law. The federal statute says, as a former federal prosecutor, I know this, shall detain aggravated felons. What did Mayorkas do? He told his agents, that's discretionary. You can release them. As a result, we had tens of thousands of aggravated felons left on the streets of America to roam freely. Not to mention the human and sex trafficking of children, Mr. Lyons, as you pointed out. So what is the administration trying to do? They're trying to remove a public safety threat from the United States of America. That is their job. Restoring public safety should be the number one priority. And one of the problems here, as I examine it, is that Minnesota, Minneapolis in particular, is a sanctuary city. What does that mean? That means that it's a magnet for illegal. They're protected under the current situation because state and locals will not cooperate with federal law enforcement. In fact, Mr. Lyons, is it not true that they were not honoring ICE detainers that were put on dangerous felons in prison so that you could remove them from the United States?
That is correct, sir. The detainers were not honored at the local level in Minneapolis.
This is the number one violation. In addition, the rhetoric on the left led to over 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE officers, an increase of over 8,000 of death threats to them. All this created a perfect storm for our officers being thrown into this situation. And then Agent Bovino came into the picture, and I would argue, in fairness, that he escalated the situation by the way that was handled. Your officers are not trained to effectuate crowd control. They are trained to move in surgically, go in and remove these dangerous, violent criminals from the United States of America. I've called for de-escalation after the two deaths, the two shootings that took place. I believe that these roving patrols should be done at the border rather than in the major cities of the United States. So when the president decided to remove Agent Bovino and put in Tom Homan, who I've known for years, a consummate professional, law enforcement professional, I commended the president. And what has been done since Mr. Homan came into the job? We now have targeted law enforcement operations. He is returning to the original mission of ICE. He is working with state and locals to do the crowd control. He is getting them to honor the ICE detainers. He is also getting the body cameras put on them. And the roving patrols, in his words to me, should be done at the border, not in major cities. My question to you, Mr. Lyons, is Mr. Homan now, are his operations in Minneapolis now bringing the situation under control?
So we've seen a de-escalation in the fact that the protests, while they still go on, have subsided, and ICE has been allowed to do their targeted, intelligence-driven enforcement operation. Just the other night, local authorities arrested 54 protesters at the local level where ICE officers did not have to be engaged in that.
My final question to you, do you believe the model that Mr. Homan is now setting in Minneapolis should be a model for the nation.
Gentleman's time is
If
expired.
I could allow the witness to answer.
I understand that, but I'm holding.
I'd
it
like
to
on the
5 minutes.
record an answer, Mr. Chairman. Do you agree that Mr. Homan's model is one for the nation?
Gentleman's time is expired.
Why are we here? And I think it's pretty clear that until proven otherwise, at 5 years of experience, that it seems like one side of the aisle is in favor of open borders and wants to abolish ICE. And I hope that that can be proven wrong. And the other side of the aisle wants to enforce the laws that are on the books. Commissioner Scott, how many administrations have you worked for in your career?
Since the Clinton administration?
So multiple Republicans, multiple Democrats.
Correct.
Is it a crime to enter this country illegally and to skip a notice to appear, to skip a court-ordered appearance, and to not comply with the laws that are on the books?
Yes, sir.
Has that changed since you started working for President Clinton?
No.
So I can't imagine establishing the fact that it is a crime to skip a notice to appear. We had 10 to 12 million people who entered this country illegally in the Biden administration. As a conservative estimate, there are sanctuary cities all throughout the United States who have said, we will not comply with federal laws. That's why we're here today. I can't imagine being a DHS officer, an ICE officer, and being threatened with violence, having death threats, being doxxed, having your family identified, putting that on the internet, and violently telling you that they are going to kill you because you are enforcing the laws that are on this book that were passed by both sides of the aisle in this body. Director Lyons, how many of your agents are being doxxed, threatened, or harassed?
We've had over 8,000% increase on death threats.
You know, I'm in the middle of working a bipartisan domestic terrorism working group with another member on this committee. There is a group called Defend 612 that has come out with tactics, techniques, and procedures in Minneapolis to do things like encourage protesters to impede law enforcement, to push civilians towards legally and physically risky confrontations, to help mobilize a counter-protest, to coordinate strategies and trainings to aid illegal immigrants to avoid detention. Are you familiar with groups like this, Defend 612?
Yes, sir. We have multiple groups around that in all 50 states.
There's an article written by Christina Buttons, and I'd like unanimous consent to enter this into the record, called Inside Minneapolis's ICE Watch Network. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter.
Without objection.
This article talks about these tactics, techniques, and procedures that put your law enforcement agents and your agents at risk. What is different about Minneapolis? What kind of coordination have you received from the local police department that we don't see any of this in Texas? We've not seen, and there have been many ICE operations that have happened in Texas, but what's different from what you've seen in Minneapolis?
Unfortunately, sir, in the beginning of the Minneapolis operation, we didn't see any cooperation at the state or the local level, whether it be from the Minneapolis Police Department or the Minnesota State Police, which led to ICE officers and agents, as well as our other federal partners, pretty much having to defend themselves from whatever impediment, riots, or protests.
Were they told by local elected officials not to cooperate?
Yes, sir.
Is that because they're a sanctuary city?
I'm assuming that's
in
what it is,
part-
sir, but I can't speak to the mind of those elected officials, but they were ordered not to stand down.
How did it make you feel as somebody who carries out the laws that this body has passed when you hear the mayor of Minneapolis say F ICE?
Oh, sir, I mean, from a morale standpoint, it hurts us to the fact that for decades, and I've worked since President Bush, ICE has always been in Minneapolis. We've always been in every major city and state. So it wasn't like it was a brand new thing. We've always been doing immigration enforcement. So that's demoralizing.
Commissioner Scott, are you separating families?
No.
Tell me about when you served President Obama. Has anything changed in the policy of deportation? And how many people did President Obama deport?
I don't have that number in front of me. Policies and how things are enforced do change. The laws have not changed. I believe what you're referring to is literally when someone is arrested, whether it's on immigration or whether it's a normal criminal offense, and they have children, we don't necessarily prosecute the children. But when someone's deported, if they want to take their children with them, they have that right. We do not separate them.
I hope that the other side of the aisle will read this article on Defend 612 and look at the tactics, techniques, and procedures And if this is domestic terrorism, where we have a group that's on signal that is calling out agents and doing things to interrupt, intercede, and prevent law enforcement from carrying out the laws that this body passed, that you'll have the courage to call it domestic terrorism if it is that way.
Mr. Lyons, has ICE hired anyone who is charged with a crime related to the January 6th riot here at the Capitol?
Sir, I don't have that information, but I would say no.
Could you find out and please report back?
Yes, sir, I'll get that. I'll take that as a get
Would
back.
you hire someone who attacked police officers here on January 6th, even though they were unfortunately pardoned by the president?
Sir, we take assault on law enforcement very serious, and we have a good, strenuous vetting program. I'm
All right,
sure.
thank you. Commissioner Scott, how many of your agents have been disciplined for excessive use of force over the past year?
I cannot comment on ongoing or
I'm not asking you to comment on
personnel
specific
action.
investigation. How many of your agents have been disciplined? I'm just asking for the total.
I'll
for
get that
excessive
number
force.
to you. I don't have it in front of me.
All right. I sent you a letter asking that question and haven't received a response. Will you commit to sending a response to me, please?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like you to view this video.
This is video of what appears to be pepper spray thrown by a federal agent into Rafael Verraz's car.
You okay, Mama? You okay?
Seconds later, he realized his daughter, 1-year-old Ariana, was in the back seat, also battling the chemicals.
Are you familiar with this incident?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is a family of United States citizens who were out to get groceries at a Sam's Club in Chicago. When they arrived, they could see that there was a chaotic operation in the parking lot. They turned their vehicle to leave, at which point your agents sprayed pepper spray out of their vehicle and into the driver's side window of the Verraz's family vehicle. Is it proper procedure to aim pepper spray into the window of a moving vehicle?
I'm not familiar. I don't have all the details on this. It's an ongoing
I'm not asking about
investigation, but to
just-
answer your specific question.
Is it proper
We try
procedure?
to avoid that. No, it's
You
not.
try to avoid it. Because you understand it's dangerous, right? Not just for the driver, but for pedestrians, for other people who could be hit by a car if a driver is blinded, right?
I 100% understand that, but you're talking about intentional versus not intentional.
Well, now listen.
I've been in a vehicle in one of these situations.
Scott, we're
that
claiming
got
my time.
pepper
From
spray
the
in my
video,
own
this
face.
was clearly intentional, and you know as well as I do that in any other law enforcement agency, if an officer did this, they would be put on leave, investigated, and likely disciplined. Were any of your agents ever investigated or disciplined for this incident?
I'll have to get back to you on this incident. I believe it's still an
So you don't
ongoing
know.
investigation, but we have at least
I'd like
10
to show
open
you
cases.
another video. This one is from Minneapolis. So as you can see, the agent sprayed pepper spray at close range directly into the face of an individual who had already been pinned to the ground by 3 other agents. And there's a picture of this behind me to give you a better view. Is this proper procedure for the use of pepper spray?
I cannot comment on that because you're only showing one piece, and that subject
Has
is
this
clearly
agent
not
been
compliant.
investigated? But this is not the intended use of this weapon, correct?
The intended use is to try to avoid escalating. It's to de-escalate the
All right.
situation. and
Well,
get
he was
the
already pinned to the
individual
ground by
comply.
3 other agents. I think he had been de-escalated. Is there any investigation into this agent for doing this?
I'll get back to you. There are several open investigations.
All right. Listen, there has been no accountability in your agency under the Trump administration. None. Your agency has repeatedly been caught on tape using unnecessary violence against civilians, and you can't even tell me if any of these agents have been investigated or disciplined. You are supposed to be making people safer, and instead, your agents are being unnecessarily violent. And that is why the Trump administration has lost the trust of the American people on immigration. Understand, it's not just the actions of the agents in the field, it is the lack of accountability from the top that has caused public trust to erode. And there need to be major reforms before we vote to give any of you any more funding. Your agencies need to act like other law enforcement agencies, take off the masks, wear badge numbers, enforce discipline with real standards of conduct. But accountability starts at the top. Kristi Noem is completely unfit and should be removed from office. And all of the operations that we just watched were overseen by Commander Gregory Bavino, who himself engaged in excessive use of force. He even admitted that he lied to a federal judge when he claimed he had been hit by a rock prior to throwing a tear gas canister at a crowd of civilians. But then after the footage came out, and that turned out to be not true, he admitted that he had lied about it. Mr. Scott, what disciplinary action do you plan to take against Mr. Bavino?
I cannot comment on personnel actions on any.
Is there an investigation underway or being considered into Mr. Bavino?
Every allegation and every use of force is fully investigated.
Well, please investigate him.
Goes through a review
You
board.
need to start enforcing discipline. in your
Gentleman's time
agency.
has expired.
Mr. Lyons, what guidance have you given to your agents about asking people walking on the streets of America to show proof of citizenship?
Sir, as I stated earlier, the men and women of ICE, deportation officers, special agents, we conduct targeted intelligence-driven operation. We don't walk around on the streets asking people about their American citizenship.
Really? So all of those individual American citizens who have been randomly asked are lying. Is that what you're saying?
Sir, if the men and women of ICE are conducting an investigation, whether it be for Title 8 immigration enforcement or Title 18 criminal enforcement, they'll ask someone their nationality.
Right, but that's not targeted because they're asking all sorts of American citizens, including off-duty law enforcement. Now, have you directed at any point your agents under the Supreme Court's racial profiling ruling to only stop non-white people and those who look like immigrants to ask for their citizenship papers?
No, sir, I haven't.
Now, you are aware, of course, and there's numerous well-documented instances of people, American citizens, being asked to show and prove their citizenship. Do you know what other regimes in the 20th century required similar proof of citizenship?
Yes, sir.
What?
Sir, there was various nefarious regimes that did that.
Is Nazi Germany one?
Yes, but
Is the Soviet Union one?
I honestly,
Sir, I'm asking the questions. Is the Soviet Union one?
Yes, sir, but I totally, this is the wrong type of questioning.
I'll tell you what the wrong type
But
of
actually,
thing
sir,
is. Sir,
is
it's my
Holocaust
time.
Museum is down at
Reclaiming my
14th
time,
and
sir.
Independence. If you want to go see
Reclaiming my
Nazism,
time,
that's what
Mr.
it is.
Chairman.
It's not the men and women of ICE that are out there doing it every day. So to say that the men and women of ICE that
Mr. Chairman, I'm reclaiming my time. I would like my
wrong.
time back, please. Please give me another 15 seconds because he was unnecessarily speaking. You said in your opening statement that references to ICE as the Gestapo or the secret police encourages threats against ICE agents.
100%.
The problem is you have it backwards, sir. People are simply making valid observations about your tactics, which are un-American and outright fascist. So I have a simple suggestion. If you don't want to be called a fascist regime or secret police, then stop acting like one. But people are simply just observing what they are seeing. And that's why people are making those comments. Now, I was a prosecutor for 10 years, prosecuted mob bosses, organized crime, violent criminals, the actual worst of the worst. Not a single criminal law enforcement agent that I worked with wore a mask to conceal their identity. But your department, which is a civil law enforcement agency, is defending the use of masks by your agents because of a so-called rise in threats and assaults against your officer. Now, you said in your opening testimony that assaults against ICE officers are up by more than 1,400%, which is now even more than the 1,300% that your gaslighting spokesperson, Tricia from Ohio, has recently been citing. But here's the problem. There are two separate, very detailed, very thorough investigative reports based on your own data that both conclude that assaults against ICE officers are up about 25%, which is far less, of course, than you assert, and far less than you would expect from an agency that has more than doubled its hiring and has an even greater increase in arrests. Now, why is that a problem, Mr. Lyons? It's a problem because the explanation that your agents are wearing masks because of fear of assaults or doxing is outright bogus. You and your untrained, unqualified, unvetted, unidentified agents are intentionally terrorizing our cities and communities all over this country to avoid accountability for their excessive force and their lawless actions. That is why you're wearing masks, so no one can hold you accountable. And you know that the FBI is not going to, because notwithstanding all of the investigations all of you say are going on, the Department of Justice and the FBI has stated they are not investigating those two murders. This is not the America that I know and love. This is not the America my immigrants came to. And it's long past time that you rein in your out-of-control agency and start following the law and the Constitution.
My mother, a Guatemalan immigrant and an American, taught me that I have the responsibility to look evil in the eye and to fight it back. Mr. Lyon, Mr. Scott, Mr. Edlow, you have used your power to perpetrate great evil. And it's about time you answer this committee for the lawlessness that you've empowered and defended in your testimony. Mr. Lyons, I want to start with you. And I want to talk about ICE. Because under your leadership, ICE has shot and killed Silverio Villegas Gonzalez and Renee Good, violated nearly 100 court orders in January alone. You've used banned chokeholds in more than 40 cases, engaged in warrantless arrests despite a consent decree, and you used children as bait to put 3,800 children in detention. You created traps for people at immigration court who were following the law and doing it the legal way. And you broke the law by entering into people's homes without a judicial warrant in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Now, let's talk about you, Mr. Scott, and CBP next. Under your leadership, CBP has attempted to execute Marimar Martinez, shooting her 5 times and not releasing the footage that you should release so that we can see the evidence, murdered Alex Preddy, used chemical agents dozens of times in Chicago after a judge ordered you to stop, conducted warrantless surveillance and racial profiling, and acted with total disrespect and disregard for the law while engaging in roving patrols, plate switching, dangerous traffic maneuvers, and observer intimidation. Again, criminals act with that total disregard for the law, and we continue to see it. You would both have us talk about respect for your mission and your agents, but your agencies are unaccountable, paramilitary forces, and I have just as much respect for you as I do for the last white men who put on masks to terrorize communities of color. I have no respect for the inheritors of the Klan Hood and the Slave Patrol. Those activities were immoral then and criminal, and so are yours. And that brings me to you, Mr. Edlow, and USCIS. Truly, USCIS is the most disappointing part of this whole panel for me. Mr. Edlow, let me ask you a question. Is USCIS's mission to uphold America's promise as a nation of welcome and possibility with fairness, integrity, and respect for all we serve? Yes or no? Is that the mission?
Congresswoman, the mission is to administer the lawful immigration system.
Okay, so let me move on. So it is not for the possibility of fairness, integrity, and respect. I get that. I want to tell you about Stephen, my constituent, Mr. Edlow. Stephen is a 14-year-old with autism who is seeking asylum. This child has spent 60 days in detention center after he was detained with his dad at a check-in. Let me ask you this. What kind of agency would strip asylum protections from children, even those with pending asylum claims, and deport minors without due process? You don't have to answer that. It's your agency, Mr. Edlow. You are doing that to Stephen, my constituent, an 8th grader. You have abandoned the mission and allowed USCIS to become a tool in DHS's abusive enforcement apparatus, Mr. Edlow. It is shameful to see what USCIS has become. As I've said before, DHS, ICE, and CBP, they're not really rogue. Congress designed DHS to violate our rights under the pretense of securing our safety. I'm gonna say it loud and clear, and I'm proud to stand by what I say. DHS cannot be reformed. It must be dismantled and something new must take its place. Because if we let DHS persist, It will continue to be a weapon that can be pointed at anyone the government considers the public enemy. And let me tell you, fascism always requires a public enemy. But the power of the people is stronger than the weapons they would wield against us. So Mr. Lyons, Mr. Scott, Mr. Edlow, you have weaponized the government. You have supported a fascist enterprise at the expense of our constitutional rights. You have violated the law. But let me remind you, you will not always be in power. One day, you will be held accountable for your role in this dark moment in America, in our nation's history. I guarantee it.
Mr. Lyons, as the senior official lead in ICE enforcement, much of today's scrutiny falls on you, and it should. We have seen repeatedly that Republicans, Trump administration, its DHS, and your agency will do absolutely anything to avoid answering for your actions. When I showed up to inspect Delaney Hall, a private prison that you contract with, ICE tried not to give us an oversight tour. Then, instead of taking accountability for ICE's attempts to keep us from seeing this facility's conditions to know if people's basic rights were being upheld, this administration is doing all they can to try to put me in prison for 17 years. When ICE shot and killed Renee Good, Kristi Noem called her a domestic terrorist. When Alex Preddy, you all tried to tell us he was threatening officers with a gun, but all we saw was a phone. This administration's clear lies fell apart, not because someone had a come to Jesus moment, but because we saw these murders from every angle. You are only here because public outrage has become so unavoidable. You are here, Mr. Lyons, because white people are getting shot in the face and chest when the cameras are rolling. Because now my Republican colleagues care about optics. But when Keith Porter Jr., a Black American citizen, a son, a father, and a man loved by many, was killed by an off-duty ICE agent on New Year's Eve, there were no hearings. So this is for him today. In my district, Jean Wilson Brutus, a Haitian immigrant, a beloved family man, died within 24 hours of being in ICE custody. He is just one of more than 30 people who have died in ICE custody last year. This is for all of them. Every human being your rogue, out-of-control agency has hurt, hunted down, imprisoned, killed, and continue to hold hostage even after they have agreed to be deported. We know this administration doesn't care about protecting people or sparing lives. We all see so plainly what you are doing, what you have been doing to Black and brown folks, immigrants, people silenced in the shadows, now in broad daylight, to people peacefully rejecting your cruel agenda in the streets, which is their right to do. This is the despicable but predictable result of an agency that laughs at oversight, receives billions to deploy lethal force on our neighborhoods, and seems to believe that they are above the law and should be without accountability. This administration believes it can act first, explain later, or hell, never explain at all, as we see here today. You all seem to think you are the highest power who decides which people deserve dignity, protection, due process, but you are wrong. We are here for answers. We are here for accountability, and we are here because people are dying. Let me repeat that. People are dying, and you don't seem to care. So, Mr. Lyons, I've heard my colleagues ask many questions over and over again, and you cannot answer them. So let me ask you some questions that you may be able to answer. Mr. Lyons, do you consider yourself a religious man?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes. Okay, well, how do you think Judgment Day will work for you with so much blood on your hands?
I'm not going to entertain that question.
Oh, okay, of course not. Do you think you're going to hell, Mr. Lyons?
I'm not going to entertain.
Of course not. How many government
The gentlelady will suspend.
How
The gentlelady will suspend.
Chairman?
A gentlelady will suspend. As I said, the issues we're debating here are important to ones that members feel deeply about.
Thank you,
While
Chairman.
vigorous disagreement is part of the legislative process, members are reminded that we must adhere to established standards of decorum in debate. The witnesses are here voluntarily, and I will continue to remind members that while oversight is important, aggressively attacking those witnesses personally is inappropriate and not in keeping with the traditions of our committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking a question. You guys are always talking about religion here in the Bible. I mean, it's okay for me to ask a question, right? But let me continue on. I got your note.
All right, the gentlelady may resume.
Thank you so much. Let me get back to my question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I appreciate you. How many government agencies, Mr. Lyons, are you aware of that routinely kill American citizens and you still get funding?
Ma'am, I'm not going to entertain that.
Of course you're not. Exactly. Once again, questions that you cannot answer. And that is exactly why, Mr. Chairman, and to this committee, to my colleagues, and to my colleagues across the aisle, this is exactly why we should not be funding this agency. The people are watching you. They are watching you. And this is why we need to abolish ICE. With that, I yield back. Thank you kindly.
I would like to, Mr. Lyons, I wanted to just follow up on a statement that you just made, which is that if you're here legally and lawfully, you should not worry. I think the problem is there are many, many immigrants that are here legally and lawfully that are very worried because they have been snatched off the streets. They have had their face beat in by ICE agents. They've been yanked out of their car. They've been driven around and harassed. And so that is, I think, at the end of the day, the key nut of the crux here, which is that unfortunately, there is not just this focus on criminals and that people who are here in legal status. And for example, I have an example of this that I'd like to highlight for you. Back in October, Maher Tarabishi, a North Texas resident who was allowed to be in this country legally and was under a supervision order to check in on an annual basis since 2008, and did that because he had an adult disabled son. And so he was here working as an IT consultant and was here in the legal process to take care of his adult legal son. He went to check into his appointment. It so happened to be at the time that the Dallas ICE office was closed due to the shooting. And so he was not able to check in. When he went back to check in, he was immediately snatched up and detained because he missed his appointment. That was unavoidable because the office was closed. He told everyone he was in legal status. He had been here since 2008. And he had an adult disabled son that would likely pass away if he was not released. He was not released. His son died. And then to complicate it, he was not allowed to go and attend the funeral. And he's still in detention in the Bluebonnet facility in Texas. He is not a criminal. He has no criminal history. He was here legally. That is an unacceptable outcome. And I would like to know if you are willing to review his case and help us get his release, because he should not be in the Bluebonnet detention facility under these facts.
Yes, ma'am. I'm committed to reviewing that case for you.
I appreciate that. The other issue that I am really very concerned about is these warrantless entries into people's homes. It is a problem that is of epic proportion. There was just recently, yesterday, circulation, a Latino family, ICE just broke into their home without a warrant. And there was an example where they arrested a man in his pajamas who had every right to be here as a U.S. citizen, but wrongfully snatched out in the freezing cold without a warrant to do so. The problem that we're having, nobody wants to see attacks on ICE agents, sir. But this is something I have brought up in this committee time and time again, which is, unfortunately, under your leadership and under Secretary Noem's leadership, this rogue brutality that ICE agents are inflicting upon the people of this country is not being reined in. It's not being, the agents who are abusing their power are not being held accountable. I'm sure that there are many, many fine agents who are doing everything they can to exercise their duty lawfully. But the problem is there are agents who are not. And the power that they have has gone to their head, and they use that power unconstitutionally in violation of many people's direct constitutional rights. And what you're seeing in this country is the fact that your agency, it's not stopping. And rather than saying, yes, we're going to take steps to keep these people who are abusing their power and who are terrorizing citizens of this country wrongfully, that we're going to hold them accountable, rather than that's what we want to see. You're doubling down on that we're only going after criminals, which is in your own comments. You said that you had 379,000 arrests, but only 8,700 of them were suspected gang members or known suspected terrorists. That's 2%. And the problem is we can't terrorize 98% of the people in this country that have been wrongfully detained for 2%. That's not how the system works. And that is not okay. And so we have to do a better job. And so what procedures are you putting in place to hold agents accountable who clearly have a hot trigger and who clearly abuse their authority because someone has a phone and a whistle?
Ma'am, ICE does have the Office of Professional Responsibility. It's a robust internal investigation agency that does investigate allegations of special agent or deportation officer misconduct. And we do take everyone seriously, and we do investigate those.
Well, those are not being publicly reported. And so that's where there's a huge breach of the public trust.
Were these controls ignored by the Walz administration and by the Department of Human Services?
Absolutely. So we have many whistleblower reports talking about how DHS undermined ability to strengthen internal controls. So, for example, there was an effort for the Child Care Assistance Program. They have a clear and convincing evidence standard to disqualify someone from being a provider, where all the other programs are a lower standard, preponderance of the evidence. There was an effort to make this a lower standard so it was easier to disqualify people to preponderance. And the Minnesota Minority Child Care Association, which was run by a group of Somali providers, opposed it, and DHS went along with their recommendation. And in a similar vein, we were trying to reduce the number of child care employees with children that could work in these child care centers, because that was one of the vectors of fraud,
Right.
and they opposed that.
So you had the Somali community who on purpose was petitioning the state of Minnesota to lower the standards to be able to make sure that fraud could not be caught. Is that correct?
Well, they wanted to keep the standard clear and convincing, which makes it harder to disqualify people.
So it makes it harder for them to be disqualified from wasting taxpayer funds. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Ms. Robbins, I want to stay with you. I want to talk about use of funds. You've talked about some of these funds were used to buy property in Kenya,
Yes, sir.
property in Turkey. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Remittances back to Somalia.
Yes.
I think it's important for the committee to understand that these remittances in part are used in what's called the Hawala. I want to make sure I have the terminology right. The Hawala network. Ms. Robbins, can you speak to what the Hawala network is?
Yes, so it's an informal network where someone goes to a Hawala place in Minneapolis, which is like a money exchange or a money sending site, and they say, I want to send X amount of dollars, and then there's a receiving site in Somalia, and they put take the cash out. So money doesn't cross the border. It's an order for money here that gets transmitted to Somalia.
For the time, because I'm out of time, I want to expound. In Somalia and other parts in the Middle East region writ large, a Hawala network is a bunch of money exchangers, hand to hand, not bank account to bank account.
Exactly.
And what is clear in Somalia and other parts is that Al-Shabaab, the largest Al-Qaeda affiliate in Somalia, they have their hands all through this network. So taxpayer money, United States dollars, that are being remitted into Somalia, in part, have been utilized or have fallen into the hands of Al-Shabaab. Do you think that's a correct assessment?
Yes, we have plenty of evidence of that, from money directly going to Al-Shabaab, but then also indirectly because they take a cut of whatever gets sent to Somalia.
Thank you so much. Chairman, I know I'm over. Thank you for the additional time.
Mr. Chair, I seek recognition for unanimous consent request.
Chair recognizes Ms. Presley.
I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a December 2025 article from the Minnesota Star Tribune titled, "Contrary to Trump's Claims, Somalis Add $8 billion to Minnesota's economy."
Without objections, ordered. Chair recognizes Ro Khanna from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, fraud, waste, and abuse is not a partisan issue. FDR in 1932 with the New Deal railed against inefficiencies, and fraud and waste in state and local government. I want to be clear. Many in the Democratic Party stand against the misappropriation or misuse of taxpayer dollars. The reality is, as a progressive Democrat, I believe the ultra-wealthy should pay more. But I want that money going for the health care, the child care, and the education of the American people. It offends me if there is waste or fraud in any of our states. That's why I called for people in my state of California to share stories of inefficiencies, fraud, or wasteful spending. I partnered with the All In podcast to advertise that we need to be responsible stewards of our tax dollars. And I believe we should be doing this for all 50 states. I challenge my colleagues on the Republican side. Let's have an audit of all 50 states to make sure that government money is being spent wisely. We don't need to make these partisan hearings. Every American has a stake in making sure that they have a receipt for where their tax dollars are going. Every American has a stake, if we're going to ask them to pay tax, to make sure that that money isn't being wasted. And I'd like to see this committee work together to stand up for basic fairness of the American taxpayers. I certainly am going to do that in the state of California, and we should be doing that in all 50 states. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Khanna. And I believe you're sincere, and we want to work with you on fraud in any state. If it's a Republican state, Democratic state, we don't care. The mission of this committee is to root out waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement, and we would gladly work with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Mr. Biggs from Arizona.
I have a UC request.
Proceed.
Thank you. First one is Arizona has recovered just 5% of taxpayer dollars lost in a $2.5 billion Medicaid fraud scheme.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I'll save the rest for the future. No, I've got a bunch more, but not right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right, thank you. Chair recognizes myself for 5 minutes of questioning. Yesterday, Minnesota's Office of the Legislative Auditor published an audit of the state's Department of Human Services Behavioral Health Administration grants. I'd like to enter that report and its cover letter into the record. Without objection, so ordered. The cover letter of this report states, quote, however, during the course of our audit, we identified a number of documents that the Behavioral Health Administration either backdated or created after our audit happened, end quote. It sounds like Governor Tim Walz's Department of Human Services may have been fabricating evidence by creating documentation after the fact to mislead voters, to mislead auditors. This new report noted that one grantee who received nearly $680,000 from this agency for 1 month's work, but could not provide any documentation or proof that any work was actually completed. What's more, and this is the kicker, the report notes that the grant manager who approved this money left the agency within days of approving the grant to take a job with the very same grantee that they approved money for. So very quickly, Representative Roberts, have you ever seen anything like this in your time as a member of the Minnesota's Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Policy Committee?
We have heard whistleblower reports of backdating and falsification before, and we also have a record of earlier in the CCAP, the child care fraud, where they would allow the providers to submit records far after the investigation and accept them as true. So clearly this has been a pattern at the agency, and it's unacceptable.
Unbelievable. And we want to work with you. We want to work with these whistleblowers. We're serious about this. The Trump administration's on the ground. We want to catch these people, and we want to put them behind bars, and we want to hold any politician that participated in these schemes accountable. Representative Hudson, who's to blame for this dysfunction?
Well, the blame can go around quite a bit, but as Tim Walz himself said, the buck stops with him.
Representative Robbins, do you have any examples of how the Walz administration blocked investigators from moving forward with high-priority fraud investigations?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman. I have met with whistleblowers and gotten documents from them about how after the original CCAP whistleblower report came out in March and April of 2019, subsequent to that, there was an Office of Inspector General within DHS that had investigative authority to do surveillance, warrants, and seize electronics, and they were shut down. They were told they could no longer do criminal investigations. They were told they could no longer meet with the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension agents that were assigned to them without supervisor's approval. And instead, when they found one of the other members talked about how they changed the language. They went from calling it fraud to calling it overbilling. And they created an overbilling committee to all the investigative agents now couldn't do criminal investigations, and they had to flag issues of overbilling, and then a committee would decide if any of that overbilling would be recouped.
Committee appointed by Waltz?
No, appointed within DHS.
Oh, appointed by the own bureaucracy.
Yes, so they shut down criminal investigations. They created a committee to call it overbilling and decide if overbilling investigations would even try to recoup the money.
This is evidence that Tim Waltz interfered with investigators who knew there was fraud. The rumors of fraud have been taking place. I've been hearing them for a decade, and yet he interfered to try to obstruct their investigation of fraud.
Yes, his agencies shut down criminal investigations.
Representative Hudson, we didn't get $9 billion stolen overnight. How did the fraud in Minnesota become so widespread?
Well, listen, let me give the maximum benefit of the doubt that these programs were designed for a beneficial legislative intent.
Of course.
The way that it happened was by when people recognized that the system wasn't working and they raised those concerns were ignored, and a culture suppressing raising those concerns was fostered by the Walz administration.
So obviously there was a lack of oversight by the Waltz administration. Why would Governor Waltz let $9 billion in fraud occur? Mr. Hudson.
In my opinion, because it was politically beneficial to Democrats. Again, the Somali community is a huge constituency group, and we've had some tight races in Minnesota, and it makes a difference for them.
Because it's a huge part of the Democrat voting base in Minnesota. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, Representative Varick, Governor Waltz's announcement not to seek a third term seems to be an admission of guilt, I think, to most Americans, and an attempt by the Democrat establishment to cover up his role in the rampant fraud. He claims this is so he can focus on defending the people of Minnesota against criminals who prey on our generosity. As someone who has been in the Minnesota legislature longer than Tim Waltz has been governor, can Governor Waltz actually be trusted to defend Minnesotans when he allowed fraud to fester for his entire tenure as governor?
Mr. Chairman, if Governor Walz was serious about stopping fraud, he would have done it in 2019 when he took office. He has done nothing other than appoint commissioners that suppressed fraud and retaliated against their own employees.
And just think, this man was almost elected Vice President of the United States. This was the pick for the sitting Vice President of the United States to be the next Vice President of the United States. This is unbelievable. If people aren't held accountable, if people don't go to jail for this, this will continue, not just in Minnesota, but other states. And we're going to do everything we can on this committee to work with you all and every whistleblower in Minnesota and any other of the 49 states who wants to come forward to expose waste, fraud, and abuse. We're going to work with you and eliminate it and hold people accountable. Chair now recognizes Mr. Mfume. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a UC request.
Okay, go ahead.
First one is from the American Immigration Council. Immigrants contribute billions to federal and state taxes each year, as well as immigrants do not commit more crimes in the U.S. despite fear-mongering.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair now recognizes Mr. Mfume from Maryland.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you and the ranking member for bringing us together on this today. I have a request for unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from James Clark, the Inspector General of the Minnesota Department of Human Services, directed to the Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Committee of the House of Representatives in Minnesota, requesting information on the alleged 700 tips that have been received I'd like to enter that with unanimous consent, Mr. Chair.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Chair, I know we're up against the clock. Many of us are trying to get to the special briefings on the action that has taken place in Venezuela, and so we are leaving one by one. I do want to try to get a couple of things in before I have to depart also. I want to thank you again. As ranking member of this committee's subcommittee on government operations, it has been my focus to combat waste, fraud, and abuse within the federal government for the last 3.5 years. Regardless of what side you're on, what side of the aisle, or what you believe, as has been stated, everybody should be against fraud. It requires our collective attention to address the issue and to minimize the consequences that we are seeing that are taking place. Not minimize the consequences to the perpetrators, but minimize the hurt to taxpayers in this country. As ranking member of that committee, we have committed ourselves to fight this full and necessary issue over and over again. And I believe that from most of the people I've heard, we all are in concurrence that stealing from taxpayers is the wrong thing, period. Now, the distinguished gentleman from Texas, Mr. Sessions, and I, who is the chairman of that subcommittee, have been working together on a bipartisan basis to create a congressional scorecard to assess the progress of key government spending programs in reducing fraud and improper payments, both through the federal government and through states. Additionally, through the American Rescue Act plan, Congress has provided funding for PRAC, as well as the Pandemic Analytics Center of Excellence to deter, detect, and prevent fraud across multiple state agencies and multiple federal agencies. I've also
Enough with the politics. Enough with the politics. Keith Ellis hearing was pretty good though, right? Let's see what we got. I'm gonna start spending a lot more time up in here, man. Into some Cat Williams exposes every celebrity on the run after the Epstein files. Let's go with King to react. Let's see what we got going on.
Congressman, do you have a response to President Trump saying that you're profiting off of the fraud situation or the fraud investigation that's going on in Minnesota? He's been saying that repeatedly. I wonder if you have a response to it.
I told you to stop believing what that man says, man.
Well,
I don't know why you keep asking me what that man says. Nothing he says is true. That's never been true.
Well, he's president.
Is it true or not? Is she really guilty of something? I would say yes. So why would she just not say that Trump is lying? Don't believe nothing he says. Why would she say that? See what I'm saying? Wow. Once again.
I mean, again, just because you're president doesn't mean you're a truthful person. That man is a liar and delusional, and obviously needs to get some help. His obsession with me is way too much.
Has DOJ contacted you at all? 'Cause
Absolutely
he's-
not. You know this. You talk to them. Like,
No. I was just wondering if you were contacted because he's saying DOJ is going to investigate you. Trump is.
I hope that actually comes true. You know, we keep hearing all these investigations, going investigation this and investigation that. But this right here actually sets the tone. Because politics has a funny way of aging. Statements get made when the environment is super comfortable, and then years later, those same words resurface when the pressure completely shifts. Be very careful about what you put out, man. I'm trying to tell y'all. And when investigations, probes, and financial scrutiny start circulating, suddenly sound bites hit different. Not proof, not verdicts, just context stacking. But here's where it gets interesting, because criticism isn't just coming from the political opponents anymore. Sometimes it comes from the inside and from the same community that helped elevate you.
What do Muslims here in Minnesota think about Ilhan Omar?
Okay, so you got to understand, this is somebody that uses Islam for a sort of political gain, you know? She advertises as a Muslim, you know, as a Muslim person that's helping the Muslim people in the community that she's representing. But we also see her upholding different views that are in conflict with core Islamic beliefs. Personally, and much of the community here would have that same agreement here.
What is she saying that you guys don't agree with?
Okay, first of all, when it comes to like LGBTQ people, we as Muslims don't believe any other person that's not any other person, no matter what they practice, should be held to a lower standard, should be given less respect. But in Islam, there's permissibility and there's not. We gotta keep in mind, you are not allowed to do certain acts, such as same-sex marriage, which she's in support for. You know, you gotta understand, same-sex marriage is incompatible with Islam. No matter how much you twist it, no matter how much you can beautify it, in every way, the final word was sent from God, and that outweighs whatever political opinion that you may have, whatever bias that you may have.
And she justifies same-sex marriage.
That's a big sense of disagreement that we have.
So this right here is where insulation starts thinning. When criticism shows up internally, values, identity, representation, that's not cable debate theater. That's foundational tension. And tension like that shifts political stability faster than outside attacks ever could. Now, hold that thought for a second, because before you get into this next story, I need to step aside real quick. When we come back, we're digging into something that starts escalating beyond disagreement. I know I'm interrupting right now, but you really need to hear this. You know about them spam calls and text messages that you annoyed at getting? Yeah, you want to know why you're getting them? Sit tight, I got you. You see, what's happening is these big tech companies, they're not doing a good job of keeping our data safe. I feel like they're not even trying. Did you know that Bank of America recently had a breach where a vendor mishandled documents exposing customer data like social security numbers? And could you believe that they didn't inform you about this because they felt like it wasn't a good time for them to do it? They waited maybe even a year to inform you. What's also included in that stolen data is full names, addresses, email addresses, your credit card information. And I don't want nobody having that much on me. And this is why I have to bring to your attention the sponsor of today's video, Aura.com. You see, Aura alerts me if my data is ever breached, giving me fast fraud alerts and removes my info from data broker websites to cut down on spam. Aura also offers transaction monitoring, VPN, antivirus protection, parental controls, and identity theft insurance, all in one affordable app. Listen, if my info was ever compromised, I wouldn't even worry about it because I know I got Aura in the back keeping me safe. And this is why I can no longer allow yourself or your family to stay unprotected. So in order to ensure that protection, I'm gonna need you to head over to aura.com/kingdomreacts right now, where you can get your first 2 weeks for free. You heard that right? And I'll do you one better. The link will be in the description waiting on you.
When I was in college, I took a terrorism class, and
is that a such thing?
Yeah, there was.
So there is a lab for that?
There was a class that you.
Do you go to lab?
No, we learned the ideology of.
I'm glad you do that.
Al Qaeda, hostile.
He's an expert.
So you're telling me that Ilhan Omar, out of Minnesota, whenever she was going to college, wherever she's from, which is Somalia, took a terrorism class they offer those kind of classes. Now, if I had to really speculate of what kind of classes that really is, that's probably teaching you the identity of, Al Qaeda and ISIS and all this other stuff. But are you serious? Now, if you're just being educated of who these people are and to stay away from these people, that's one thing. But
yeah,
she just said it was basically a terrorist class.
Yeah, I heard it too.
That's not AI, people. That's her doing an interview. This is someone who's representing the United States. How in the world is this person representing the United States in any shape, way, fashion, or form? Someone answer me that question.
She definitely did not want this footage to get out at all. And this is where the narrative shaping kicks into high gear. Old footage resurfaces, context get trimmed, and reactions, obviously, they're going to be amplified. Some people see harmless academic discussion. I see red flags. I'm going to just keep it real, you know what I mean? And I know what I got on right now. And momentum only needs circulation. That's all it needs, which brings us into something that circulates far more aggressively than rhetoric. And that's that money.
We've been informed in the last few hours that the Ethics Committee is probably going to have to be the committee that takes that investigation up. I'm disappointed to learn that. We thought that the Oversight Committee could do that. So we're going to be writing a letter in the morning referring this to the Ethics Committee. And it's a simple investigation, Sean. There are two companies listed on Omar's husband's financial disclosure form. Both were one was worth between $1,000 and $5,000, and then the very next year it was worth between $1 and $5 million. Another one was worth, I think, $25,000, and the next year was worth between $5 and $30 million, based on the ranges on the financial disclosure form. Either way, those are significant increases in value. We just have questions that any American would have. What type of businesses are these? That we know that the Department of Justice in the Biden administration was investigating Omar's husband for reports of fraud. We know there's a winery in question that has a big value on there that some believe isn't worth anything. So there are a lot of questions. This investigation shouldn't take long. She should just willingly come in, she and her husband, and answer these questions. It shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. But thus far, over the last 2 weeks, it's been crickets from Omar.
My fault. This is where things shift from commentary to process, though. Committees, financial disclosures, asset valuation spikes, referrals. Now, again, investigation isn't conclusion, but it is escalation. And escalation creates, gravitational pull. More media attention, more scrutiny, more narrative expansion. Meanwhile, while D.C. started asking questions, the ground environment back home is evolving too.
Welcome to Galmudug, state of Somalia.
This guy seems to believe that the Somalian government claimed some land in Minnesota and it's theirs to govern now. This meeting's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, at the Safari restaurant, which is associated with the Feeding Our Future scam.
The restaurant claimed to serve more than 3.9 million meals to children in a 19-month span, even using Congresswoman Ilhan Omar in a promotional video in an alleged attempt to show legitimacy.
Farhia Khalif Mahmoud. Farhia is my leader. We'll lead this country together. When I say now, she became state representative Galmudug.
I want you to understand what this guy's saying. He's saying that Farhia Khalif is his leader. He is a member of the Galmudug state, not a U.S. citizen. He's a Galmudug state citizen in Minneapolis. Farhia Khalif is his government leader. This is the definition of an insurrection. She was appointed as the governor of the Galmudug state of North America, and this is the celebration that they had, and everybody was like, yeah, Somalia.
Welcome to Galmudug, state of Somalia. We all together on this one. We've been living here for long. We're gonna lead this country together. When I say together, means me and you and us, inshallah. So Farhia Khalif Mahmoud is one of the leaders in this state, all the way Virginia Beach, individually so, and now she became state representative Galmudug for USA. She is my leader. When I say that, I know who she is. I know where she started from. I know where she's going with this.
Same footage, multiple interpretations. I don't know about to say this. Cultural pride to some, political symbolism to other, integration concern to another group entirely. Okay, so narrative divergence like this feeds media ecosystems, each audience reacting differently. And when public interpretation fractures, that's when tension moves from digital to physical spaces, which leads us to here.
Watch out, watch out, watch out. After weeks of anti-ICE demonstrations rocking the Twin Cities,
easily more than 2,000 marchers here right now.
There is no end in sight. Helping fuel some of the ongoing protests, Powwow Grounds in South Minneapolis, a Native American-owned coffee shop sharing space with an art gallery that's now been transformed into one of the city's largest suppliers of social unrest.
Yeah, man, ice.
From an endless stash of whistles to filters for gas masks, Crow Belcourt says they have everything needed to hold federal officers accountable.
It's like an all-hands-on-deck type thing. We all need to step up.
Belcourt leads advocacy group Indigenous Protector Movement.
Who's funding all this?
Community, neighbors.
He says they're leveraging social media for donations to keep this operation going for free.
We encourage legal observing, recording, because some of this is going to come to light.
The people who go out on the streets, they're not all peaceful. Some of them are anarchists, some of them are Antifa, and some may say you're equipping them.
I haven't seen too many Antifa or anarchists come through these doors.
He recently teamed up with Powwow Grounds owner Bob Rice to mobilize against federal authorities.
That's fine, dude.
After the shooting death of Renee Good in January.
Let me see your IDs of where you live.
And doubled down on their mission after watching the second deadly confrontation between far-left activists and ICE agents that claimed the life of Alex Preddy.
The video shows Preddy destroying an ICE vehicle. He kicked the
interview. Rice didn't like some of my probing questions.
Sorry, I can't do this.
So he ended things early.
No, that's fine. And I know it's a tough question, but I'm done. Okay, no, that's fine. Right.
And on the way out,
now,
his associate assaulted me on the property.
All I did was ask questions. Okay, I'm leaving. I don't understand what's...
You're going to report me? Okay, sure.
I'm not trying to cause any problems.
That's when we decided to look further into their business structure. After examining public records, Frontline's Turning Point USA has learned Powwow Grounds is a for-profit business filed as a limited liability corporation.
Hey, how you doing?
But according to the most recent tax filing, Indigenous Protector Movement is a nonprofit that's received more than $200,000 in government money. And the Native American Community Development Institute that runs the All My Relations Art Gallery got nearly $500,000 in taxpayer handouts.
We definitely need to look at that. That's not what they're being funded for.
We brought these findings to Republican State Representative and gubernatorial candidate Peggy Bennett.
Shut it down!
Bennett says she's all for peaceful demonstrations.
It's a constitutional right.
But is concerned about violent communist-aligned groups and the radical left hijacking the situation and taking advantage of this generosity.
Pushing not just resistance, but chaos and violence.
To destabilize America with taxpayer dollars.
They're trying to provoke our law enforcement to go after them and cause problems, and then they'll utilize those violent interactions for more of their, what I'll call propaganda.
She's also worried about these whistles. A Maryland coalition of nonprofits helping Hispanics and Latinos.
All kinds of whistles, huh?
Says these simple devices are being weaponized by anti-ICE activists, and the high-pitched, often piercing sounds from whistles can re-traumatize illegal immigrants and create conditions for dangerous conflicts between civilians and armed federal agents.
The regular person in Minnesota and Minneapolis who's donating to this kind of thing has no idea the underlying tactical warfare that's happening.
After our investigation, Representative Bennett's office is now scrutinizing what amounts to a taxpayer-funded refueling station for protesters, accessible even to violent extremists.
You're in violation of Minneapolis.
Because no one's checking to see who's taking this stuff or where it ends up.
We don't want that in Minnesota.
Some say it could be putting ICE agents at risk.
ICE is putting the public at risk.
I think I've made it to the end of this anti-ICE march. For now, the activists here say they're not about to change their tactics or their giving to the community.
We got people here who have papers, who have visas, work visas, and they're getting nabbed up, man.
And are encouraging even more people to join their cause.
Now we're entering into institutional allegation territory. Funding trails, organizational connections, street-level unrest claims right here. Well, whether verified, disputed, or somewhat in between, politically speaking, the optics alone creates turbulence. And turbulence, that tends to attract enforcement visibility. It does. Which is exactly why we start seeing what we see next.
She is terrified. 2,000 federal agents, one city, and a congresswoman watching her entire world collapse in real time. What you're about to hear is the biggest story the mainstream media is desperately trying to bury. While they're busy covering the latest celebrity scandal or manufactured outrage, the largest immigration enforcement operation in American history is happening right now in Minneapolis. And at the center of it all, Representative Ilhan Omar sitting in her office, watching helplessly as her political kingdom is literally being put on planes and sent back across the ocean. This isn't just about immigration enforcement. This is about $300 million in stolen taxpayer money. This is about a fraud scheme so massive it makes Enron look like a lemonade stand. This is about a member of Congress who might, and I'm going to say this very carefully, who might herself be in this country through fraud. The walls are closing in. The investigations are accelerating. And Omar? She's terrified, and she should be. Let me set the stage for you. For years, we've been told that questioning anything about Representative Ilhan Omar was somehow racist, somehow Islamophobic, somehow un-American. We've been told to look the other way while her district became a magnet for fraud, while federal dollars disappeared into black holes, while the very people she claims to represent were being exploited by criminal networks operating right under her nose. But now the chickens are coming home to roost, and Omar is watching her political power base evaporate in real time. The Department of Homeland Security just launched what they're calling the largest immigration enforcement operation in the agency's history. 2,000 federal agents descended on Minneapolis. 2,000. Let that sink in for a moment. When was the last time you saw the federal government commit that level of resources to enforcing immigration law? This isn't some routine operation. This is a full-scale intervention, and it's happening in Ilhan Omar's backyard. Now, before the left starts screaming about targeting and discrimination, let's talk about why this is happening. Let's talk about the facts that Omar and her allies want to bury. Minnesota has been ground zero for one of the largest welfare fraud schemes in American history. We're talking about the Feeding Our Future scandal, a supposed nonprofit that claimed to be feeding hungry children during the COVID pandemic. Sounds noble, right? Except they weren't feeding children. They were stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from American taxpayers. The federal prosecutors have now raised their estimate of the theft to $300.
I mean, just wow. Visuals like this reshape perception immediately. Operations, agents, detentions. I mean, regardless of interpretation, images carry emotional weight faster than policy discussion ever could. And when enforcement narratives gain traction, they ripple upward toward leadership, toward leadership accountability debates, actually. That ripple actually lands right here.
Democrats took money from our kids.
Democrats took money from your kids, the kids who need it most, dumped it into fraudulent daycare facilities, and turned the other way when this abuse was reported. This has been their pattern, so this really shouldn't surprise anybody. But what's happening there is absolutely disgusting. Tim Walz can announce that he won't run again for governor, but he will still be held accountable by House Republicans. And that's exactly what we're doing this week in the House Oversight Committee.
Yes.
Democrats took money from...
Please hold that man accountable. Now we've zoomed out to systemic responsibility arguments. You know, state oversight, federal scrutiny, public funds, public abuse allegations. This isn't personality politics anymore. This becomes institutional conflict framing. And those narratives don't burn out quickly, y'all. They compound. So what does that leave us? No verdict issued, no conclusions forced, just simultaneous currents. Yeah, man, I don't know. Internal division, financial scrutiny, narrative escalation, enforcement, visibility, oversight, pressure. And when those currents move together, y'all already know. You already know what happens, what follows after that. Not opinions. Pattern recognition. So if you made it to the end of this video, I want you to comment. What do I want y'all to comment? What do I want y'all to comment? I don't know. Maybe.
Thanks for that commentary, buddy.
I think this one out. Lock it up. Yeah, it was right there. It was right there. I mean, it was right there. And it took me that long to... Y'all be safe. Go check on somebody today. You could quite literally be safe.
Williams tried to warn people, and once again, it looks like he was ahead of the curve. Long before official documents ever came out, he was already calling out powerful celebrities and saying the truth was hiding in plain sight. Now that the Epstein files are public, a lot of those old warnings suddenly don't sound so crazy. In fact, they sound right on time. When Kat sat down on Club Shay Shay, he didn't just crack jokes. He opened the door to conversations Hollywood didn't want anyone having. He hinted that famous names, not just politicians, were tangled up in things they didn't want exposed.
That's the battle that's going on, is people who profit from the manipulation of others by getting you to believe something that's not the case. And that's how they make their living. And it is now a difficult time for those entities.
Back then, people laughed it off or called him bitter. But now, with names showing up in court documents and flight records, denial is getting harder to hold on to. Once the Epstein files dropped, fans rushed to protect their favorite stars. Many people just couldn't accept that celebrities they admired could be mixed up in serious allegations. Jay-Z is one of the names that caused the biggest reaction.
If you take people like Jay-Z and Pusha T, they made their living our people, so how the they gonna stand up for our people? You know what I'm saying? But we forget that because we love Jay-Z's music so much. We love Pusha's music so much, right? But you think they would ever, Beyonce had the best fit for somebody else?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You think they would ever tell the truth? No, if they told the truth, I think they'd go to jail. You know what I'm saying? So you have liars. Man. Liars are now the face of our culture.
An anonymous accuser mentioned him in the documents, which immediately sparked outrage from his supporters. They argued that the timing didn't make sense, saying he was just starting his career in the mid-1990s and didn't have access to elite circles yet. But being new to fame doesn't mean being new to connections. Those are two very different things. Even early in his career, Jay-Z was already moving comfortably in powerful spaces. Old clips and interviews resurfaced, showing him closely associated with industry figures like Harvey Weinstein. And to many viewers, the dynamic looked uncomfortable, almost controlled. People who revisited those moments said it raised questions they hadn't noticed before.
in your thoughts on Donald Trump and what it means for what it means for mass incarceration?
You know what? This is a labor of love for Jay, and as a result, he's my friend. We're here to talk about that and nothing else.
Then can I ask about mass incarceration? And do you think the movement is...
On top of that, old photos and videos began circulating again, placing Jay-Z at high-profile parties alongside controversial figures. At the time, many brushed Kanye off. Now, people are replaying those words with fresh ears. Things didn't stop there. Other celebrities named in the files are also facing renewed scrutiny. Naomi Campbell's name appeared through flight records, showing she traveled multiple times on Epstein's private jet in the early 2000s. She has publicly said she had no knowledge of his crimes and has stated that she stands with victims. Still, emails and past footage circulating online have caused many people to question how much she really knew and what role she may have played in recruiting young models under the guise of work opportunities.
I'm still shocked that there's nothing about Naomi Campbell really coming forward yet. I'm surprised. I'm like bitterly surprised. Her time.
Yeah, they said her name was on the list like the most as far as like flight records.
Yeah.
She was on a lot of flights.
A lot of flights.
You mentioned
also Diddy's ex-girlfriend.
Hey.
Isn't that funny? What a small world.
There you go.
After the party is the hotel lobby.
Come on, Jack. Come on. Wait.
You want to know what's funny though?
Yeah.
Naomi Campbell is finally being tracked.
Yeah. What? Y'all ain't heard?
Cruella DeVille is finally being checked.
Wow. Hey, I've seen some shit. I've seen something on that.
Listen to me, any woman that Mike Tyson has to put a restraining order on needs to be checked.
That is facts. Them is facts. Oh, wait, hold on, wait.
I keep telling everybody, she the Ghislaine.
Man.
I'm still trying to figure out how she pulled that off. Where she was able to get a white woman to go to jail for.
Then there's Bill Gates. Years ago, he admitted on television that spending time with Epstein was a mistake and claimed it was limited to a few dinners. But the documents paint a deeper relationship, including repeated contact and connections that went beyond casual meetings. Not long after, his marriage ended, with Melinda Gates later speaking openly about how disturbed she was by Epstein and how deeply it affected her. Bill recently came out to deny the allegations and apologize for his association with Epstein. But not many people believe him.
I was foolish to spend time with him. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him. No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. It just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that. It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
Even Chris Tucker's name appeared in the records, linked to a flight taken on Epstein's jet in the early 2000s. While being listed doesn't automatically prove wrongdoing, the growing list of familiar names has made one thing clear. This wasn't a small circle, and it wasn't limited to one industry. Chris and his team quickly went into damage control mode. They claimed his name only came up because he happened to be on Epstein's private jet for a so-called humanitarian trip to Africa, focused on charity work and AIDS awareness.
You knew Jeffrey Epstein, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. We flew Bill Clinton and a lot of different, that was a humanitarian trip to Africa.
Yeah.
And I met him on that trip because it was his plane. I didn't know who plane we was getting on, but it was a whole bunch of dignitary people. We was with a delegation, and yeah, I met him, and you know, you don't know people what they do in their private lives, so yeah.
But tell me this, Chris. You was on this private plane, and you could tell that it was a private plane because they called it, what is Lolita Express?
Oh yeah, it was a private plane. Yes. Oh yes.
But wait a minute. You didn't never go to that island, did you?
No. I don't know where that thing at. No. I don't think. Hey, we was going to Africa to save lives.
According to them, the trip also included Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey, so it was supposed to look official and innocent. But almost nobody believed that explanation.
Tucker that we got now is Epstein Island Chris Tucker, not Smokey.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Ever talk to you about like, hey, I know Donald Trump, hey, I know Kevin Spacey, hey, I know Leonardo DiCaprio? Like, did he ever talk about these celebrities and like these stories with them or anything like that?
No, he would tell me things like I knew when he flew Clinton to Africa, which is what first put him on the map. You know, he told me he went to Africa. He took Spacey, Chris Tucker. Yeah, he would tell me, mention people's names that he was with, but he wouldn't tell me much about them themselves. Mm-hmm. But you know, he would tell me he was with so and so. Like,
if I didn't know no better, I'd tell you he's the greatest. I don't care what you say. To be confident and not delusional is a real skill. Most of these confident people we see is really delusional.
Well, you don't think they asked Chris Tucker to come back in the second Friday?
Chris Tucker didn't want to be the poster child for smoking weed. He don't smoke weed like that.
Right.
He in the church. He Michael Jackson's best friend. Christmas. Michael Jackson called him Christmas. You ever met a man that gave you a little nickname like that?
No.
Me neither. Must be the greatest.
Man, I ain't gonna be able to get nobody back. I ain't gonna be able to get no more comedians.
They all coming.
No, they ain't.
Are you kidding?
Nah.
Hey, I promise
good thing
you.
I done got all the rest of them. I done got the ones.
I promise you, everybody trying to double back. You're gonna be having to beat them off with a stick. You won't let him. They're coming. Much as.
Bringing up Bill Clinton actually made things worse. By now, everyone has seen the photos of Clinton inside Epstein's mansion, looking way too relaxed for someone who supposedly didn't know what was going on. To a lot of people, that comfort spoke louder than any statement. And Chris? He was around these same circles while all of this was happening, yet he wants the public to believe he had no idea about anything. That's a hard sell. And just when it seemed like Kat was done, other voices entered the fray. As these documents circulated, longtime singer Jaguar Wright resurfaced with her own perspective, adding fuel to ongoing conversations about power in the music industry. In a lengthy interview, she explained that her issues with Jay-Z didn't come from one single incident. Instead, she said it was something she watched build over time.
Adjacent to, or, traveling in the same circles as the person that's been selected to be this icon. Because let's just be very clear, he was selected, just like Diddy was selected. Question is by who? Now, for many years, I minded my business about a lot of things, but a lot of things came to me. I heard a lot of things. You gotta remember, this was back when I was still trying to be amicable with the industry so that I could have my career, so that I could have my life, right? Everything that I worked for, everything that I sacrificed. Up until, what? 2016, 2017, I was still ignoring a lot of things. A lot of things. It wasn't until I couldn't ignore it anymore because I realized this ain't going nowhere. And then when I started seeing exactly how dangerous things have become, it was very simple. It's either you're going to speak up or they're going to keep getting away with it, or you're going to get handled up on regardless because you're not playing along the way you should be playing along. Like that's how this works. Like the people that get rewarded are the people that keep the secrets, the people that are quiet, and the people that lie for them. The people who get a pass are the people who pretend that like they don't know what's going on. And then the people that speak up are the people that, you know, get persecuted, get framed, get trashed, you know, are forced to go broke, you know, that kind of shit. So yeah, like I cannot say that it was an overnight process. I was hoping. See, I was always so quick to just blame, you know, all of the harm and just the terrible shit in the industry on Diddy. I wasn't really willing to accept the fact that they were working together.
Eventually, she reached a breaking point. According to her, the industry didn't reward honesty, it rewarded silence. Those who kept secrets, played along, or pretended not to see anything were protected. Those who spoke up, she claimed, were pushed out, discredited, or financially destroyed. Jaguar also said she once blamed all the damage she saw on Diddy alone. Over time, she said she realized the situation was bigger and more connected than she wanted to admit. That's why she found it hard to believe public claims that certain powerful figures were never close or never worked together, especially when past interviews and footage suggested otherwise.
So, Jag, with Jay-Z and his situation, as far as the early Jay-Z, you see him with Aaliyah Young, of course, goes to Dame Dash next. You see him with Foxy Brown. You see the maturation of Beyonce and him getting with Beyonce. You see Rihanna at a young age. Is it more so, and you were young as a singer, is it more so that, you know, when you're in this industry, men are going to most likely talk and date their peers? And it's just that technically all the new rising stars at that time
are babies.
Were just young women, just young kids.
Babies. Being ran around by grown men. Babies. I got offered my first record deal when I was 13 years old. I got offered another one when I was 15. I'm so grateful that my father said no. I ended up not signing a record deal until I was in my early 20s. And as young as that is, looking back now, at least I was a legal adult. Most of these girls, they get moved around and touched around very early on. And, you know, and the people that have control of everything are untouchable. So how do you argue with that?
Is it of concern that before this list came out, that the people in this power they have their hands in keeping this list, you know, suppressed?
Yeah. Come on, man. I think we're speaking about this from a place where we're trying to make it seem like things are fair and people are just and people are decent. And rather than looking at it for what it is, the one thing that all of these files and all of these documents, and let's just be clear, we're talking about 3 million documents that have been released so far. When you release that amount of information, you're doing it to fatigue people. You know, it's going to take people quite some time to get through all of these files, and who knows how long they're going to be available. Stuff might start go missing, things of that nature. But we all should be going through and combing through every inch of everything that's going on. Because when they put that much out there, they're hoping you're going to just overlook something. They're hoping you're going to get fatigued from all of the information, and you're not. We got to keep looking. Like, we have like 4 people around us that are every day combing through a bit. We combing through a bit. And you got to sit down and you got to take your time and look at it. What these files prove is that there are no rules, is that nothing has ever been fair. It's been being covered up. Like, that's the point.
She explained that denial is comfortable for people. It's easier to dismiss uncomfortable information than to face it. She pointed to media voices who downplay the Epstein documents, saying things like, names being mentioned doesn't mean anything, or these aren't official, or it was just a tip line. Jaguar wasn't buying it. Her question was simple. If none of it meant anything, why were the files kept for so long? She said people are quick to destroy innocent individuals over rumors, yet bend over backwards to defend powerful figures whose names are tied to Epstein. To her, that doesn't make sense. If someone's name is connected to Epstein in any serious way, she believes that alone should raise serious questions, not automatic excuses. When the conversation shifted to the Department of Justice, the host asked the big question: why were these files hidden for so long? The Epstein Files Transparency Act only came into play in mid-2025, forcing disclosure. But before that, both the Trump and Biden administrations had opportunities to release the information, and neither did. Jaguar was clear. This isn't about politics.
Trump administration, don't forget the Biden administration had the ability to release these files as well, and they didn't either.
True.
So this isn't a political thing. Let's stop making it political. I think everyone wants to make it political. Oh, look at the politicians, and this isn't about the rappers, and this isn't about this, and this is about the politicians. No, it's not. No, it's not, because you got Democrats and Republicans equally aligned up in this whole foolishness. This is about a certain class of people in this country that have been doing all kinds of shit. And it really doesn't matter what your religious background is, what your social standing is, or what your political standing is. It really doesn't matter. This is not about them versus us, or no. This is about the weirdos and then the normal people. And not even normal people, just decent people. The problem is that the weirdos are outnumbering, it's looking like, the decent people, 10-1. Like, does anybody get that? Like, the simple fact that nobody is holding TMZ into account for anything, and they've been mentioned in these files. Harvey Levin specifically.
To Jaguar, the silence says everything. Elon Musk's situation also took a sharper turn with the document release. Musk has previously said he refused invitations to Epstein's island, but emails from 2012 suggest something different.
Tonight, the Department of Justice releasing their final batch of files connected to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. New emails from 2012 and 2013 show billionaire Elon Musk and Epstein coordinating a possible visit to the financier's infamous island. Musk asks when the wildest party will be. In another exchange, Epstein telling Musk there is always space for you and says he will send a heli for him. It's not clear if Musk ever visited the island. Musk's name has popped up in prior releases, including from the House Oversight Committee's release from the Epstein estate. He did not respond to NBC News' request for comment, but previously called Epstein a cretin and said he never advised him. Musk told Vanity Fair that Epstein tried repeatedly to get him to his island, but he declined. Emails also show Trump Cabinet Secretary Howard Lutnick coordinating a visit in the Caribbean in 2012. It's not clear if the meetings happened. Lutnick claimed to have cut ties with Epstein in 2005.
My wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
But the emails show drink and lunch meetings being arranged between the two well into 2012. A Commerce Secretary spokesperson said in a statement, quote, Secretary Lutnick has had limited interactions with Mr. Epstein in the presence of his wife and has never been accused of wrongdoing. The drop also includes a spreadsheet summary of complaints made to the FBI's National Threat Operations Center. It contained allegations against former President Donald Trump and former President Bill Clinton. There's no indication the FBI turned up evidence supporting the tips. And a note on the file read some of these individuals are reporting secondhand information and determined some of the tips were not credible. The DOJ later temporarily pulled the file without explanation. Both former presidents have denied any wrongdoing.
Woody Allen's name appears repeatedly throughout the files. Epstein often tried to organize dinners involving Allen, sometimes looping in other well-known figures. Epstein also helped facilitate introductions related to Allen's film projects. A prominent lawyer contacted Epstein about getting his son work on an Allen film, and Epstein responded that he would look into it. Cat Williams also pointed out something else people don't like to talk about. He said there are public figures who project one image, but somehow never seem to run into legal trouble, even while speaking as if they live the opposite kind of life. In his view, that contrast alone should make people stop and think. He compared it to a chessboard. You don't play the game without pawns, and you don't always know who's playing what role.
In Hollywood exists, in religious circles, in politics, in the medical profession, in
in any circle of business, really.
Yeah.
They had a big bust with Puff Daddy where he got arrested. And then they've had accusations and stuff. He hasn't gone on trial, I don't think yet. But do you think that there's been speculation that they did that because the timing of that was they wanted to use other people that have allegedly been involved in some of his circles they wanted to kind of use okay, you could be next unless you help this political plan. Do you think that's at all possible?
That's how all cases are handled. Yeah. Right? So what am I saying? I'm saying if it's car theft and we're going to accuse you of having a carjacking ring, right? We're going to begin by bringing in people that we caught who were robbing cars, who said that you was the boss. They're first in line. And then we're gonna bring in victims, the people whose cars you stole and said, yeah, that was him. That's how they build a case. So, none of that should be shocking.
When asked whether public figures sometimes seem changed after reaching certain levels of power, Cat didn't hesitate. He said people don't always come out the same on the other side of big choices. Once someone crosses lines they once swore they never would, something about them shifts, and no amount of image repair can fully bring back who they used to be. He explained that offers and pressure aren't limited to entertainment. They show up in every field. Some of it, he said, is just human nature. People listen. People stay quiet. People justify things to survive. Cat shared that even he was shocked when he personally saw how much control certain powerful figures had behind the scenes. He said there were moments when it became clear that some people were used to never hearing the word no. If they wanted something, they expected the system to bend until they got it. Toward the end, the conversation touched on government agencies and long-standing rumors. Cat didn't dismiss them outright. He said people often misunderstand what agencies like the FBI or CIA actually do. In his view, they've always been doing their jobs. Sometimes that job involves watching, documenting, and waiting, for decades if necessary. He made one final point that landed hard. The only reason files can surface decades later is because someone was watching and recording the whole time. And that realization, he said, is the part that should really make people uneasy. Now that the files are public, celebrities who once felt untouchable are suddenly quiet, defensive, or disappearing from the spotlight. Hollywood is uncomfortable right now, and for the first time in a long time, it shows. Cat Williams tried to warn people, and once again, it looks like he was ahead of the curve. Long before official documents ever came out, he was already calling out powerful celebrities and saying the truth was hiding in plain sight. Now that the Epstein files are public, a lot of those old warnings suddenly don't sound so crazy. In fact, they sound right on time. When Cat sat down on Club Shay Shay, he didn't just crack jokes. He opened the door to conversations Hollywood didn't want anyone having. He hinted that famous names, not just politicians, were tangled up in things they didn't want exposed.
That's the battle that's going on, is people who profit from the manipulation of others by getting you to believe something that's not the case. And that's how they make their living. And it is now a difficult time for those entities.
Back then, people laughed it off or called him bitter. But now, with names showing up in court documents and flight records, denial is getting harder to hold on to. Once the Epstein files dropped, fans rushed to protect their favorite stars. Many people just couldn't accept that celebrities they admired could be mixed up in serious allegations.
Brando. That being said, see y'all cats tomorrow.